What's good, IB Nation? Welcome to another edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. I'm Vince. That's Trevor. It's Friday. That means it's the Friday free-for-all mailbag. It's time to get lit and listen to what you guys have to say. And you guys are running the show, so get your questions in. We've got a ton of questions in the queue already. If you do want to ask a question, and we will attempt to get to as many as we possibly can, but make sure you put the MB at the front. Make sure you get the little mailbox emoji there at the front so we can star it up and get it into the queue. But we got a lot going on with today, and Brian is super busy, so he might join us a little bit later. But Trevor and I are gonna steer this ship, baby, and see where it takes us. But we're here with you guys for the afternoon. We're gonna answer as many questions as we possibly can. Nothing is off the table, folks. So if you guys want to ask it, we will attempt to answer it. And the only thing that's kind of off the table, I would say, is like predicting who's going to, commit when and like that kind of stuff. Like let kids have their moment, that kind of stuff. So we're not going to answer questions like that. But if there's a commitment towards Notre Dame, then obviously we will discuss it. We will have a show. We will do all the things that we normally do at Irish Breakdown. So if everybody could just chill with that stuff, everything else is on the table. So I'm looking forward to it, man. Friday's the best day of the week, Trev. How are you doing, my man?
Brother, it's Friday. We're good to go. Now, I will say it is going to be hot as all get out down here in Indianapolis the next 5 days. It's like upper 90s, so it's going to be a little it's going to be a little spicy down here. But outside of that, we're good, man. I mean, Pacers had a big win last night, celebrated a friend's birthday yesterday, full slate of activities this weekend. So we're ready to go. But I would not have it any other way than kick it off with a Friday free-for-all mailbag, Vince. I say we get started. What about you?
Let's do it. Let's roll, man.
First one up is our guy, A. Reagan.
All right. Do you think the quarterback to break the all-time win record is on the current roster? This is an interesting question, Trevor, because to break the all-time current win record is going to take some longevity. So I'll just tee that up for you. So you go ahead.
Yeah, I'll give you a short answer here, A. Reagan. I do think so. And one, it's for the talent on this team, the roster makeup overall. But it's just also a simple numbers game. Think about how many games Notre Dame played. Notre Dame played 16 games last season. And so you think if they are the team that we expect them to be, to make consistent, deep playoff runs, I would have to imagine at least 13, 14 win type of seasons for them. All-time record's 30, correct?
How about 30 or 31?
Okay.
Yeah, and Ian Book has it, yeah.
Okay. Now, some of that will be dictated on, let's just say CJ Carr starts this season, and then in 2026, if he performs the way that we believe that he will, is he going to stay around for 2027? I don't know. I have no clue. Same thing with Kenny Minchie. If he has a really good 25 and 26, does he come back for his fifth year? Who knows? The question's up in the air. But I do think it is somebody on the current roster between CJ, Kenny, Hebert. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all, strictly from just a numbers standpoint. And so it's definitely up in the air. Vince, what about you?
Yeah, so the one thing that the guys on the roster have going for them now is more potential games per year, right? So, I mean, that's an important piece of this puzzle. They played 16 games and they won 14 of them last year. So that, you can get 14 games a year, 14, 15 games a year, it only takes 2 years. I'm not a math major, but that's what it would take. So if Notre Dame goes and they play in the national championship game 2 years in a row moving forward, well, I guess that would be 3 years in a row. They got a good shot of breaking the 30, right? It's a simple yes if CJ Carr stays for 3 years. If whoever starts this year stays for 3 years, 100% record broken, call it a day. If, like you said, CJ's as good as we think he is, I think he'll be gone after his junior year. He's probably not going to have enough opportunities to win 30 games.
Sure.
So, Ian Book played for 4 years. He kind of accumulated enough wins in that amount of time, right? You're talking about a guy who's going to play for 2. And if Kenny Minchie ends up starting this year, I think there's a very good possibility he leaves after 2 years. So I don't know that it would be him. So that would be my only hesitation to this whole thing is that I don't know if they're going to be around long enough. But bottom line, if either one of them is around for 3 years as the starter, that record is gone.
Yep. 100%. I'm with you. Next one up.
From Muhammad Abdi, Brian, or Trevor and Vince. Why do you think ND agreed to playing Miami, Florida State, and Clemson more than sticking to their previous agreement with the ACC, benefiting those teams more than ND, thus making the playoffs harder?
I don't think it's a case of making the playoffs harder, Muhammad. I don't, because at the end of the day, you want your team to be some sort of level of battle tested heading into the postseason. Look, there is a world where Notre Dame, if they just wanted to play what's their contract right now? Five ACC games.
Yeah.
There's a world, if they wanted to, they could play Wake Forest, Stanford, North Carolina, NC State, and say Syracuse.
Right.
Every single year if they wanted to, and just rotate home and homes. But that wouldn't do much for you. I understand the counter argument as well. When schedules coming up, they have Texas and they have Alabama and they have some. Agreed. We also don't know if USC is going to stay on the schedule. If I were a betting man, which I am, unfortunately, I would say that's probably not going to be in the cards as of today. And so you want your team to be some sort of level of tested. Look, Notre Dame was built on we will play anybody, anywhere, any place, anytime. And that is something that Marcus Freeman, if you've heard a lot of his discussions this offseason, that's something that he still holds in very high regard to his football program now moving forward. The Notre Dame Clemson game, look, you go back, we talked about it when the series was announced. They've had some great games. They've had really good games in the last, call it half decade when they face each other. You have the 29 or the 2020 game for Notre Dame. They beat them in overtime in the regular season, played them again in the ACC championship game. Clemson won that one. In 22, Clemson came to South Bend, faced an unranked Notre Dame team as the number 4 team in the country and got blown out 35-14. And then the following season, while they were down 8 starters, Clemson got the win at home and kind of jumped on Notre Dame a little bit. And so I would rather see those type of games. And then for Miami and Florida State, this does kind of predate my time a little bit, but I also understand the lore and the history of Notre Dame. Those are just good old time's sake rivalry type of games. Florida State in the 90s was kind of hey, Notre Dame just doesn't really mess with them a little bit. Miami in the 80s and 90s, it was the same way. I err more on the side of I would rather Notre Dame play teams that they have history with. If you want to throw in a Pitt, 100%, absolutely. I think Pitt and Georgia Tech are 2 teams that they've played in like top 7 most all time.
Yeah.
And so I'm absolutely okay with those, but Notre Dame's goal is to make it to the national championship game and compete. It's not to just make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm okay with having a Miami, having a Clemson, having a Florida State. Small sample size with them because they went from 13-1 to 2-10. Where they're going to be at this season, who knows? But I think that's more along the lines of why they did it.
Yeah, they, like you said, they could cherry pick the worst teams. Look, they're doing the ACC a favor. That's the way Notre Dame looks at it, as they're doing ACC a favor by having this 5-game contract. But then the ACC looks at it as they're doing Notre Dame a favor because they took all of the other sports and they're like, okay, well, if we're going to do that, then we want to have 5 games. Like it benefits both sides. And if you're going to do it, if you're going to have 5 games that you're going to play, why not make them fun games? Like, why not? Notre Dame is all about tradition. They're all about all these different things. And look, there's tradition with Miami. There's tradition with Florida State. There's tradition, granted, newer tradition, but tradition with Clemson. So I'm cool with it, man. Like, I'll watch Notre Dame play against, paint drying. Like, I love watching Notre Dame play. Like, I'm a fan. But come on, let's be honest. Like, we're going to get up more for a game against Miami or Florida State or Clemson than we do a game against Stanford. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the nature of the beast. And Notre Dame is going to have to, they're talking about strength of schedule being something that is going to be in play potentially in 26 and beyond, as far as picking teams if they don't have the automatic qualifiers and all these different things. They're going to punish teams for having a crap schedule.
Yep.
Big Ten schools are going to be in trouble, man. Like, strength of schedule means something, and they're going to obviously have to iron out what that looks like and what that means. But at the end of the day, as fans, do we really want to see Notre Dame run roughshod over a bunch of garbage teams? I don't. I'm not a Michigan fan. Like, that is not who I want to be. So I'm good with Notre Dame scheduling good teams. I'm cool with it. At least traditionally good teams. Because I don't know that Florida State's all going to be good this year or not, but traditionally good teams. I'm good with it. Because they schedule so far out in advance, Trevor. Like, they got a 12-year contract with Clemson. Who the heck knows what Clemson's going to be in 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
All right, and if you say you do, you're lying to yourself. You know what I mean?
Well, it's the same with other future opponents. There's draw a lot of news about Alabama and Texas and Florida and schools like that on Notre Dame's future schedules. Once you get up to the upper 2020s and early 2030s, odds are they're probably still going to be a good program.
Right.
But who knows? I mean, in this world of the transfer portal and NIL the way that it is, who knows how it's going to be? So I'm with you. I'm with you completely. Got one in here from our guy, Aiden Benami.
Aiden, thank you very much. Let's see what we got here. Who regulates the summer workouts? How do they regulate how often coach is there and the coaching football part? No way someone is able to regulate this. Honor system, ? This is actually an easy one, Aiden, and I appreciate the question. The coaches aren't allowed there at all right now. They're discussing moving in that direction in the future, but I believe right now the coaches aren't allowed to be there at all. It's the strength coach and staff, correct?
I know Brian mentioned that the coaches have more availability to summer workouts this season, but I think it's in discussion of like how much and when, because at the end of the day, Marcus Freeman and his staff, they're working they have all these camps coming up. They got different recruiting visits that they have to continue to go on, things like that.
They're busy.
Yep. So right now, who regulates the summer workouts? It's Lauren Landau. I mean,
Correct.
For all sakes and purposes, in the offseason, once you get to this point, their head coach is the strength and conditioning coach. That's who they're reporting to every day. And this is when, like we talked about, what does summer actually look like for Notre Dame, Aiden? This is when we discussed, this is when your leaders of the team emerge.
Mm-hmm.
Honor system, sure. Because who are you reporting to? You're making sure that you're showing out for the rest of your teammates. Because if not, if Notre Dame has the leadership we believe it to, you're going to have guys like Christian Gray, Adon Schuler, Jaden Greathouse, Jeremiah Love, Emil Wagner pulling you aside and kind of being like, hey, what the heck, man? You didn't bring it today. You didn't.
Right.
This is where teams can make the jump from great to elite in the summer. And I know people don't think of that because summer workouts are the unsexy time of college football. Not a whole lot of clips to be putting out. They're not on the practice fields. They're not in helmets and shoulder pads. Like it's a lot of that type of work. But who regulates it? It's a strength and conditioning coach for sure. Yes. But Vince, to your point, I do believe the coaches can be in there sometimes. I think now they're just working on the volume.
Yeah, because I know they're talking about for next summer actually being able to have like practices, non-padded practices where they can do walkthroughs and, do some different things. And so, so, it's a strength coach. Like, even my kid at the D2 level, he's got practice tomorrow up at the school, and it's run by the coaches, it's run by the strength staff and the seniors. Like, those are the ones it's called a captain's practice. Same idea, right? So it's an informal, non-mandatory kind of a deal. Now, D1, it's mandatory. You're already living at school. You're there. Like D2, they're all kind of arriving at school, the guys that can get there. But D1, you're there. You're living there. You're going to school. Like, it's not voluntary. It's not OTAs, right? Yeah. So they have to be there. So,
yep, absolutely. Vince, this next one's super interesting. I want to get your thoughts on this one first.
John A1, if Charlie Weis hired Harry Hiestand as the O-line coach and now Golden as defensive coordinator following the 05 season, would the 06 and 07 seasons have played out any differently? Wow. That's a really, really good question, obviously. The defense, look, I think they would have been better, okay? They would have been better. It would not have solved the overarching problem from the top down. So, and what I mean by that is Charlie Weis it was a great offensive mind. I don't think anybody's ever going to argue that, right? His offenses were really good. And he was good at recruiting too. What he wasn't good at was developing. And he wasn't good at getting guys opportunities in practice that weren't the starters. He wasn't like, you could, like, if you were there you could kind of see the writing on the wall as to kind of what was coming. And so they were really good surface area, right, with your starters and that kind of thing. And he brought in really good players and things like that. But it wasn't much of a team, if that's a good way to put it. And he wasn't developing guys at the bottom end of the roster that will eventually be at the top end of the roster. That was the biggest issue. He ran practices like the NFL, where you work with your starters and that's about it. You know what I mean? And a lot of shorts and helmets and, stuff like that. And so he ran it like the NFL. And then in the NFL, more like today, to be honest with you, if a guy's not cutting the mustard, then you just go to free agency and you bring somebody else in who will. Like those professional players are self-motivated, right? Whether it's by their contract or whether it's by the fact they have to provide for their family or whatever the case may be. College is a little bit different. Now, I realize things have changed, but 20 years ago, they were still college students that weren't getting paid, right? So they needed some external motivation, not just internal motivation. I would argue the NFL was more internal motivation than it is external motivation. Does that make sense?
No, I agree with you 100%. Look, it's tough because some of the issues in 2006, I think, still would have been there. Even though Harry Heedstand would have been the offensive line coach. Look, the O-line in 06 was not that great. You had a lot of seniors kind of stepping up into roles after some like high caliber players like Mark LaVoire left. I know he was a really highly touted recruit coming into South Bend when he was in high school. But I think the outcome would have been different? I guess in terms of how the season played out, potentially. I just don't know if their losses would have been as bad of losses, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Right.
That LSU team with Jamarcus Russell and how they were put together, I don't know if Notre Dame beats them. I just don't think they lose by like 25 or whatever they lost by. Michigan in week 2, I don't know if they win that game, just because that was just one of the games where everything, ball bounced Michigan's way, everything went right for Michigan, and the offensive line got absolutely handled against that Michigan front four. Would Harry Heedstand and Al Golden have been the difference maker in those? Potentially. I don't know if they win. I know they don't lose in the dominant fashion that they did. Would it have played out any differently? Potentially. But what made Harry Heedstand and Al Golden so good is they were able to bring the guys in that they wanted to and develop them. And in some of these defenses, I mean, especially Harry Heedstand, I don't know what all he would have had along the offensive line. Sam Young was a true freshman. Still would have had Ryan Harris. I believe the tackles would have been pretty good. But on the interior, I mean, you had John Sullivan was your center. Bob Morton was your left guard. So potentially, I think they would have been better. But I don't know if it would have been enough to say, like, they would have competed for a BCS title or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's a good question, though. And then 07, God, I mean, the team was just so young. I mean.
And that's the thing, that he didn't prepare those kids. Like, it's like, okay, here you go. Go out and win us some games just like those other guys did. What's the problem? Weren't you paying attention in practice when we weren't practicing you? Like, come on. Yeah, it wasn't great.
We got another one in here about fan bases.
Oh, yeah, that should be interesting. Broke Neck Boy. What fan base have you gained respect for recently? Fan base you hate even more, and a fan base you always despised. Wow. Gained more respect. You know what? I'm going to go with Georgia on that one. I think the Georgia fans were always very respectful, at least in person. We were down, obviously, in New Orleans for the bowl game, and there were way more Georgia fans down there than there were Notre Dame fans. And we were going to parades and we were walking around and, in the French Quarter and all those different things. There was Georgia fans everywhere. And I wasn't shy. I was wearing my Irish Breakdown stuff and I was wearing my Notre Dame stuff. And shout out to the people that recognized me on the street, which I thought was wild. But recognized Irish Breakdown. Let's be real clear on that. But they were all really cool. Like, they were cheering for their team, when they had like the official parade and the Georgia band went by and then the Notre Dame band went by. They were cheering for their team. They weren't like booing Notre Dame. And there was like some nice heckling, but like not demeaning. You know what I mean? It's like, Oh, that's your band. They're terrible. Like it was funny stuff. So like they were very respectful. Like I thought that they were great, to be perfectly honest with you. And I didn't have a chance back when Notre Dame did the home and away with Georgia. I didn't go down to Georgia for that game. I didn't really interact with any fans when Georgia came up here, but I've heard a lot of the same kind of thing from people during that time. But I actually witnessed it this time around, and I thought they were great, to be perfectly honest with you. Very depressed afterwards, but they were great.
No, that's fair. Yeah, I guess we'll knock these out one at a time. A fan base that I've gained respect for recently. That's tough. I've always had good interactions with Clemson fans, and maybe this could come with I also am one of those people who thinks pretty highly of the Tigers heading into this season. But look, man, my dad and I were at the 2022 Clemson game, the one where Ben Morrison had those 2 interceptions. One of them was a pick 6, and we had some Clemson fans sitting in front of us, and they held good conversation. Look, I'm all down for banter and some lighthearted chirping. I think that's what makes sports fun.
100%.
If I'm being honest, as long as it doesn't cross that line.
Correct.
And the Clemson fan sitting in front of us, it was a dad and his son, and I was there with my dad. So we were going back and forth, who's better or what. And, I threw out the 2020 regular season game, what happened in the conference championship game. It was fun though.
Right.
It wasn't you guys all suck, that type of thing.
Right.
And so I would say Clemson, their team is on the rise, and you don't hear a lot, and maybe I just don't see it a lot on social media. I know we have some people in IB Nation that live around Clemson that might have differing opinions than I. And then obviously the closer you get to where the team actually is, gets a little louder, naturally. But at the end of the day, I haven't seen a whole lot of them on social media kind of like spouting off about how good their team is going to be and coming back. Like I've even seen some Clemson accounts on Twitter defend Notre Dame in some aspects of like, hey, this team is not going to be as bad as what you think. Now, they're also not screaming from the rooftops that they're going to be semifinalist contenders again, but they're like, hey, this is a good team. This is somebody that, Clemson has to be on the lookout for. So I'd probably say them. What about a fan base that you dislike even more now?
I mean, that's just because of recent events, and we can bring up the super chat here in a minute too, because it kind of touches on it. It's Penn State. Like, I don't understand just the vile remarks coming from Penn State fans, even after Notre Dame beat them. Like, it got even louder at that point, which makes no sense to me in any way, shape, or form. So it's Penn State. I grew much more hatred for them. And I don't like to use the word hatred because it's just more extreme dislike. I just don't understand it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why? Like, who peed in your Cheerios, man, that you've got to like come at Notre Dame fans all the time? Like, they settled it on the field. Like, your guy threw an interception at the end. You lost. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, I just don't understand Penn State fans. It just makes no sense to me whatsoever. And then they, it just continues on the recruiting trail. So I just don't understand Penn State fans. So they have escalated my hatred here recently.
Yeah, I would also probably say Penn State. At the time, Indiana fans got to be a lot.
That's fair.
At the time, because it's kind of like that, when you're at like a family Thanksgiving and you finally get to graduate from the kids' table to the adult table. It's kind of like what Indiana was this past season.
Yeah.
You were perennially the worst college football program at the FBS level. You strung together like 9 straight losing seasons outside of COVID. You were 0-6 in postseason games since 2000. You were the first FBS program to reach 700 losses. And you have your first season in double-digit wins, and now you're talking like you're Alabama.
You're right.
That compounded with living in Indiana, because I think people who do understand that a little bit more.
You're a lot closer to Bloomington too than
yeah, and I go back and forth a lot with IU fans. Like, it's, at least we're a basketball school. It's like, yeah, well, Notre Dame's even made the Elite Eight more recently than they have. So, I guess you're a basketball school in that you're definitely not a football school, but besides the point. At the time, it was probably Indiana, but now it's subsided. Like, after the victory, like, I haven't heard much.
They realized their place at the table.
Yeah, they realized like, oh, I am the 11-year-old at the adult table at Thanksgiving
right.
dinner. I should probably wait at least until I can drive.
Yeah.
So I would say them for a short amount of time, but Penn State takes the cake for me now. mostly for a lot of the delusion. And then a fan base that I've always despised. I don't like Michigan.
Oh,
I don't,
that's
bro.
clearly my answer too. Like I've
Oh.
always hated Michigan, always. But I'll let you continue. I mean, I think it's pretty well known that we both dislike Michigan pretty greatly. There's no doubt about that. And the IU fan thing was really annoying in the moment.
Yes.
Because they just wouldn't listen to reason. It's like, guys, like, welcome to the party. You got an invitation, proud of you, but it's going to be an early exit. Like you're going to be home before the streetlights come on. You know what I mean? Like this is not going to be something where you're going to be here till the end of the party, you know? And they just didn't realize that until Jeremiah Love went 98. Like at that point, it was like, okay, we know where we probably stand at this point.
Yeah, it's got to be tough losing by double digits in the playoffs and then walking back to your car in their clown pants.
Oh, those are awful, aren't they?
But it is what it is.
And I've hated IU for a long, long time. And most of it, like their football program never really bothered me because they stunk. So like it didn't matter. You know what I mean? Yeah. I just always disliked their basketball team because of all the annoying people that we live around. Like I couldn't stand IU basketball. Just couldn't stand it. And the pants, the striped pants are awful. And there are way too many head coaches in the state of Indiana at the high school level that do the striped pants thing because of IU. And it's a problem. Every time I'm at a high school game and they come out in the striped pants, it's like, really, guys? You couldn't have come up with your own thing. Like it's not a fan in any way.
Yeah, look. The amount of we've all been there. We all love sports. The amount of high school lunchroom table debates I would get in about why I'm a Notre Dame fan and not an IU fan blew my mind. People forget I grew up in Elkhart. Right. I've lived in Indianapolis now for about 10 years, but I grew up in Elkhart. And people would always ask me, like, how are you not an IU fan? This is Indiana. And I'm like, okay. Easily. And I can see South Bend. I can see the Golden Dome from my house.
Right.
Like I am not anywhere near close to Bloomington. And so it's just, all those ongoing debates, man, which honestly leads us into this super chat.
Yeah, we got a few super chats we probably want to get to here.
Yep. We'll get these knocked out here real quick.
Yeah. Lou Holtz, Thunder and Bolts, thank you so much for the super chat. Why are Penn State fans becoming so unlikable since the Orange Bowl? Weird jealousy of Notre Dame, inflated self-image. James Franklin, never really thought about him, but now don't mind dunking on them on and off the field. I'll let you start this one.
Look, in all seriousness, I think it's a lot of frustration, truly. And this is strictly from a football standpoint, because we had a little bit of fun with the last question. But truly, I think they're frustrated with the state of their program, and they've been hearing for a very long time. It's like, hey, look, like this should be the time. This should be when Penn State rises up to the top. It wasn't that long ago that we felt the same way with Brian Kelly. Every single year we hear this is the year and this is the talent and this is the year it all comes together. In 2021, that's all we heard. This is a Notre Dame team unlike one we haven't seen in a while, and this is shades of 2012. And I think Penn State's getting a little bit of that, and so they're just looking for a place to put it. And Notre Dame was their most recent loss, and now they're competing on the recruiting trail. Look, big picture, I think Notre Dame is ahead, but like the program has been like relatively similar over the last, call it, couple decades. You know, like the narrative has changed, I believe, with Marcus Freeman now in South Bend. But you look at Penn State, it's like they always have good regular seasons, you know, especially lately. They're always getting to 10, 11 wins, but then they get into that big moment and they just can't win that big game, whether it's home or away. Does it sound familiar to any other football team that we hold dearly to our hearts in the previous regime? Yes. And now that Notre Dame beat Penn State on a big stage, that's just another, oh my goodness. I think Penn State fans have I think people who follow Penn State have just kind of grown accustomed to like, we're just going to lose to Ohio State. And I'm being serious, to where now it's, you know, Notre Dame was the team that they were supposed to be. It's Notre Dame. To them, it's Notre Dame. They haven't done anything since 88. I mean, you haven't done anything since 86, but you know, point being, I think it's a lot of frustration, and they're just looking for somewhere to put it. And Notre Dame falls in that category.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And I think it's a little bit of all of those things, to be honest, Lou. I just don't understand it. The louder the person is, the more, how do I want to say this? The squeaky wheel gets the grease pretty much. It's like, you don't have to put yourself out there so much. Just sit back and let your actions speak for themselves. But they can't do that because their actions last spoke for themselves when I was 5 years old. So.
Fair enough. Got another super chat in here from my guy, Big Hoss.
Big Hoss. Thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate it. Says, fellas, been a while since I caught a live show. Welcome, Big Hoss. Appreciate you. Here's a non-football question to keep you sane. What show have you rewatched too many times? And what's a show everyone loves that you refuse to watch just because? Go Irish. This is good stuff. I didn't see this one come through, so I didn't have a chance to go through it. But the first thing that comes to mind is West Wing. I've watched that one all the way through a couple different times. Madam Secretary, watched that one through a couple of different times. You can kind of see a trend here. I kind of like political dramas, that kind of thing. So those are the two that come to mind that I've rewatched a couple too many times. And one that I I don't know if refuse to watch is the right word. There's a couple, like Game of Thrones does not interest me in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, thanks.
I know. This just doesn't do anything for me. Lost is a big one for Stiers. He loves Lost. He's watched that one multiple times. Never seen an episode. Doesn't really do anything for me. So those would be the two that I can come up with off the top of my head. Like, it's well documented on the evening show that there's movies that I haven't seen that people have seen, and I get a lot of crap for that. But like, I've never seen like the Bourne movies. I've never seen any of the Mission Impossible movies. I know. So like, I get a lot of crap for those, which I get. So, but yeah, Game of Thrones does not interest me at all.
Well, that's going to do it for us here today on Irish. So actually, to answer your question here, Big Hoss, I am not a big TV show guy.
Okay.
I've seen like a lot of the popular ones. Like I've seen Game of Thrones. I've seen Stranger Things, stuff like that. But, my friend group is big with TV show. Hey, did you see this? It came out on Netflix. See this come out on Hulu. It's not a them thing. It's a me thing. My attention span is not long enough to sit down and watch, and especially because like, I don't think some of their selling points are great. It's like, hey, listen, the first 2.5 seasons is really slow, but then it's awesome. And it's like,
So the first 40 episodes, they're but
that's what I'm saying. Imagine if I said that about movies. If I was just like, hey, Vince, you got to check out this movie. 2.5 hours long. The first 2 hours and 15 minutes, you can kind of snooze through, but the final battle, so cool. Like so I am not a big TV show person, but one that I have rewatched a lot. I mean, it's a lot of sitcom stuff because like I'll just turn it on when I need something to do,
Sure.
or if we're just lounging around the apartment, I'll just throw on like The Office or Friends or How I Met Your Mother or something. And then a show that everyone loves that I refuse to watch just because a lot of my friends love Sons of Anarchy, and I've never seen it, and nor do I have the desire to see it. I mean, I've heard great things about it. I don't know. I think it more so falls into I just am not a TV show person.
Yeah, I get that. I like to have a TV show kind of like in my back pocket to just throw on, like in the background, especially one that I've already seen. But like, I like to have a series to kind of work my way through. And
Sure.
I do work my way through a lot of different series and a lot of random stuff, to be honest with you. Because I just like to have something to throw on. You know what I mean? I can't sit in silence. Like that doesn't work for me. So I'll throw on Netflix or I'll throw on something and I'll start. Like I'm watching All American right now. And it's I think it was originally on the CW maybe or something like that. And so I'm watching that. I started it a long time ago, but it's like it's in the holster, you know what I mean? So I could just throw it on and watch it. But like I'm all over the place when it comes to like different stuff that I watch. So but that's what I'm watching right now. Pretty decent. I just think it's all hilarious that everybody in that series is like 30 years old, but that's how most of those things are.
Fair enough. Got one more super chat in here. We'll get back up to the top.
Beautiful. Rob Osgood, thanks for the super chat, my man. Appreciate you. Recruiting question. I may be wrong, but it seems Notre Dame recruiting this year has been more aggressive than in the past. Besides
Chad Bowden.
Thank you, Chad Bowden leaving. Who did great? What's the difference this year, or am I wrong?
No, Rob, you're definitely not wrong. Thank you for the super chat, man. Appreciate you. But look, a lot of it is just the momentum of coming off of a national championship appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Notre Dame fans are catching some flack from other fan bases. You didn't win it. True. And I'm not sitting here claiming that they did win it. But this football team last season accomplished something that, depending on what lens you look at it, have never accomplished in winning 14 games, new program record. Also helps that there were 16 games to play. But they also won their first major bowl win in 31 years and then did it again 7 days later just to put the exclamation point on it. That's momentum. Those are sales pitches you can use on the recruiting trail. So your conversation changes from, look what you can add to our program and help us get to that point and help us get over the hump to, hey, look, come be a part of what we're building here. You could be the missing ingredient to winning a national championship, which is a little bit more sexy than, hey, you could help us win the Fiesta Bowl. And so I'm not saying that they said that along the recruiting trail, but a lot of it has to do with the success that they had last season. And I think with Chad Bowden departing, a lot of the position coaches are having to be a little bit more hands-on. There's more continuity in the staff as of right now, I would have to imagine. I don't have the sources that Brian has. And when I don't have the sources, I have zero sources that what Brian has. But I have to imagine it's just working more as a cohesive unit right now. Because Brian's talked about on the show, sometimes there would be disagreements between who Chad wanted to get versus a position coach might want to get. Now it's more of a cohesive effort. I think that's also a factor too. I'm not one of the people that looks at it and says, now that Chad Bowden is gone, that's why they're doing well. I disagree with some of the things he did post leaving Notre Dame, but he also brought in really good recruits while he was here as well. But I think it's the success of last season. And I think the coaching staff is able to work a little bit more cohesively on the recruiting trail. What say you, Vince?
No, I like that. I'm with you as far as Bowden. I lost some respect for him after he left and some of the things that he did. But while he was here, he elevated the recruiting process at Notre Dame. Bottom line, and anybody that says that is just sour grapes. Like I said, I don't like what he's been saying since he left. Like, I think that's kind of messed up, to be perfectly honest with you. But it is what it is. He also knows that Notre Dame is one of his biggest rivals now. And so he can't just wax poetic about his time at Notre Dame either. So I understand it from his perspective. But I also think he could have handled some things differently. Yep. So I will say that. So he has dropped a little bit on my respect ladder, but his time at Notre Dame was legit. And the way that the recruiting operation is going right now, I think there is some renewed vigor from the coaching staff. I agree with you that it's more of a cohesive unit right now, but I just feel like they're all kind of tugging in the same direction, for lack of a better analogy. You know what I mean? They're pulling their rope in the same direction. And so they're being successful. And I think it's a multi-coach situation. It's a recruiting staff situation. Like, they pick out the guys that they want and they go hard, and they're having success.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to look who their head coach is. Right. Marcus Freeman holds his recruiting abilities in a very high regard. And you want to hire people that kind of emulate the type of success that you want. And I think Marcus Freeman's done a great job at doing that since he's been in South Bend. Agreed. Back to the top.
All right. From PK, what it do? PQ, what it do? There we go. Who would be your dream 3 teams for Notre Dame to beat in the playoff en route to a 15-0 season? So that's assuming that Notre Dame gets the bye and they've got to win 3 games to win the championship.
So I'm going to switch this up a little bit, PQ, because as much as I would love for Notre Dame to get a bye, I love the fact that they got a home playoff win last season in South Bend. So let's just say 16-0 season. I'll answer both. But I'll start out with a 16-0 season. They get a home playoff game. I want them to beat LSU at home.
Oh, that's a good one.
I want them to beat Ohio State after they receive the bye from being the Big Ten champions. and then I want them to beat Alabama, and then I want them to beat Texas. I think from a narrative standpoint, I think that would do wonders for their program. I'm not going to push back on anybody if they want to beat Ohio State in the national championship game. I totally get that. I think the counter argument that a lot of people would have, now look, this is one that I'm not going to care about. Notre Dame could beat whoever on their way to a national championship.
Matter.
If they win a natty, I don't care, because I watched what Michigan did to win a national championship. I could care less what.
I mean, they cheated their butts off to win it, and they're cool with it. Like, they're okay. They won. That's all they care about.
So whoever Notre Dame plays along the way, I don't care. This is just a preference. But in my eyes, if Notre Dame plays Ohio State in the national championship and wins, the conversation is going to be cool. But Notre Dame beat a team without Jack Sawyer and JT and Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson and Emeka Egbuka, and basically begin to list off all of the players that Ohio State didn't have on the team that did beat Notre Dame. And so that's why I say, like, maybe in the quarterfinals, it's like, hey, you conquered that team, but you beat a team that might not have the full potential as last season's based on experience, et cetera, et cetera. But then in a 15-0 season, I'd probably keep the same order. Yeah, I'd probably keep the same order just without the LSU win at home. But, man, I would love to watch Notre Dame. I would love to watch Brian Kelly come back into South Bend and lose in South Bend to Marcus Freeman.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's just the vindictive side of me that would appreciate that, and the fact that he would have backed into the playoff as an away team, an away first round team. Like, I'd be okay with that. As far as who I would want to beat, look, they've had so many shots at Ohio State and they haven't won. Ohio State has to be one of the ones that they win, and I don't care. And when I give up these names, I don't care where in the playoff it happens. That doesn't matter to me. I just want them to beat those teams.
Sure.
They've already beaten Georgia. They've already beaten Penn State. I don't need to see that again. So Ohio State is definitely one for me. Michigan, I would love to spank Michigan around a little bit in the playoff. I think that would be extremely annoying leading up to the game, but then extremely satisfying during and after the game. So yeah, Michigan would definitely fall into that category for me. So Michigan, Ohio State, and it's hard because I don't want to pick 3 Big Ten schools. So USC's out, and I don't necessarily want to beat them because I do respect them. So I'm okay. We'll just beat them in the regular season. So that's okay. So it's Michigan, Ohio State, and then Alabama would be a good one, I think, from a narrative standpoint. I think you have to have an SEC school in there somewhere. And the odds of you not playing an SEC school in the playoff and going beginning to end, wire to wire, the chances of you not being an SEC team would be slim, I would think. So those would be my 3. It'd be Michigan, Ohio State, and Alabama.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Got another super chat in here from our guy, Connor Grant.
Connor Grant. Are we sleeping on Bubba Frazier? First of all, thank you very much for this super chat, Connor. Are we sleeping on Bubba Frazier? He seems like a lightning in a bottle type prospect. I am very high on him personally. So what say you, Trevor, on Bubba Frazier?
I can't speak for the rest of Notre Dame Nation. I know between me, Brian, Vince, the Shawns, I don't think we're sleeping on Bubba Frazier. I think he might fly a little bit under the radar because the wide receiver position is still one that needs to continually be recruited at a high level at Notre Dame. You need that program defining or that class defining pickup in this class, and hopefully that's going to come later this summer. But no, Bubba Frazier is a great talent. There's a reason why Notre Dame went after him so hard. They're trying to recruit certain types of players at this position. I mean, that's why they're high on Bubba Frazier. That's why they're still high on Braden Robinson. That's why they brought in a Will Pauling. That's why Jordan Faison has been such an integral part of their offense. That's why they brought in a Logan Saldate. And so he's an electric playmaker with the ball in his hands. I love Bubba Frazier, but I think a lot of him gets overshadowed by the fact that they still need that, that, for lack of better words, like that blue chip, like 4 or 5-star kid out of like a Texas or a Florida or something like that. I think he just might fly under the radar. But, Bubba Frazier is a great talent, and I'm happy that he's a part of this class. So, like I said, I can't speak for everybody. I don't think that we're sleeping on him, but I can't speak for everybody else.
Okay. All right.
What
do we got next? What's next in the queue?
Up next, we got one from Matt Riley.
All right, Matt. He says, first Notre Dame quote-unquote tailgate party at the new house last season. Figured I'd pick a nice, easy game so everyone could enjoy themselves. NIU had other plans for me. What game this year should I redeem myself?
USC. It'll be a night game. It'll be a night game. I know Lincoln Riley and the West Coast Warriors don't want to come up to South Bend when it's, south of 50 degrees. But in all seriousness, it could potentially be the last time that Notre Dame plays USC in the regular season for the foreseeable future.
Say it ain't
unless
so.
Something gets renewed. And I hope that I'm wrong. I really do. But I think that's fun. Like, that's the one game, Matt, that even Lauren was like, hey, when does Notre Dame play USC this year? I want to go up and I want to be a part of the tailgate scene. I want to do all this stuff. So I'd go USC. Rivalry weekends are always different when you're walking around on campus. It's always different when you're getting the gang together to hang out and watch the game too. So that would be my pick. And then if not, then you got a lot of fun games on the slate. I mean, Navy's a historical rivalry. They play them at night. They play Boise State at home for the first time in program history. And I'm telling you right now, that Texas A&M game is going to be a high-octane game. High-octane game.
If you're looking for the nice, easy game so everyone can enjoy themselves, my answer is the Purdue game. And if it's a home game, you know what I mean? Like, look, NIU would spank Purdue all over the field. So I would say Purdue. If you're looking for the best actual game, then I agree with Trevor. It's the USC game. So it depends on what side of the pendulum that you want to be on.
Agreed. Let's get back up here to Bobby S.
Bobby S., are you hearing the same hype about Malachi Fields as other places? And has your already high expectation for him been raised by your feedback from sources? Well, I don't have sources, so I have not. I mean, everybody in the Goog is high on Malachi Fields. Otherwise, they wouldn't have brought him here, right? So he has not had a chance to practice with the team. I believe he's doing the offseason conditioning and things like that. My expectations were always high. I can't decide whether I think he's going to be 1A or 1B when it comes to Jaden Greathouse. But as long as they complement each other and force double teams elsewhere, or, take pressure off one or the other, I'm good with it. So that's my expectation of Malachi Fields. I'm excited about him being in a Notre Dame uniform. I just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I echo Vince. I don't have sources. The guy who has sources will hopefully be on the show here. He has a heck of a busy afternoon. But all I know is from outside other places. I know you referenced that in your question here, Bobby. I know that CBS Sports ranked him as the top 150 NFL draft prospect. There's been a lot of outlets that rank him as, Notre Dame's top newcomer. He's been ranked in some lists. I believe he was in Lindy's list for top wide receivers heading into this season. I think he was like 16th. I think he was 16th. Jaden Greathouse was 9th. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot of hype around him. He's a very productive player. He fits the bill of like an NFL type of receiver, 6'4", 220, good route runner, vertical downfield playmaker. So yeah, I mean, I would assume if those are some of the things that I'm echoing, I would also have to assume that the staff is doing the same thing as well. But that's just me. So we got a two-parter in here. So I'll bring up the first part and let you read the second part.
All right, from John, is Preston Zinter still purely a linebacker? On yesterday's show, it was mentioned Cole Mullins had an impressive spring game, but I remember Zinter making a lot of plays off the edge. Could Zinter easily be an impact edge player in the rotation in 25?
I definitely think he has the potential to. He is kind of the wild card for me in the linebacker room. Got your watch talking to you?
Yeah, apparently. It had the entire thing I just read. And they're like, I don't know. Okay, thanks, watch.
Thanks, Siri. I'm going to have to call Apple. They don't know enough about Preston Zinter.
Seriously.
It's ridiculous. Now, John, I do think that Preston Zinter kind of presents an interesting dynamic to the linebacker room. Now, I don't know how much of them running an odd front and moving down Preston Zinter had much to do with him coming off the edge a lot in the season, or if it was more of they didn't have Bubakar in the spring game. They weren't playing Bryce Young that much in the spring game. Logan Thomas was out for the spring game. Jordan Botello was out for the spring game. So list goes on and on, right? So I would say that it's definitely a possibility, but he's somebody with enough talent that you have to find a way to get him onto the field. She's got a lot of in front of him in the linebacker room right now. So, but I do think that he could be an impact player on the edge rotation for sure, especially now with the injury to Jordan Botelho. And, Jalen Sneed is working to become a more well-rounded 3-down linebacker than more of a niche 3rd-down pass rusher. Kingston, I'm sure they're going to want to use more as a 3-down linebacker. So who knows? I mean, Preston Zinter could be in that conversation as far as an impact edge player. Cole Mullins, who I believe we have a question about, could also be in that conversation while some of these other players kind of find their footing and really elevate their game like we talked about yesterday. So That's a good question, but the possibility is very, very high. All righty, let's see here. Got another one in here.
From PQ, what it do? What is the state of Notre Dame football, Riley Leonard's career, and Mike Elko's career if Hartman does not convert 4th and 16? Does Riley end up at Notre Dame? Does Elko end up at A&M? Is Notre Dame in the national championship?
Oh,
that's putting a lot on one play from the year before, affecting an awful lot on the year after. Whew, man. That's complete. Obviously, that's complete speculation. It's a fun thought, experiment, I suppose. Obviously, they don't win that game, most likely. I mean, based on where it was in the game and all of those different things. So if they don't win that game, that doesn't mean they're going to lose the rest of their games. So I would think if A&M would have come calling on Elko. If they came calling on him when he lost that game, they would have come calling on him if he won the game, and it still would have been a step up from Duke to go to Texas A&M. So I think he does go to A&M. So that's that question. Does Riley Leonard end up at Notre Dame? I feel like yes, because Notre Dame is still Notre Dame and Riley Leonard is still Riley Leonard. Knowing what we know about him as a person, knowing what we know about his relationship with Hartman, I still think he ends up at Notre Dame. Is Notre Dame in the national champ? I'll say yes, because Riley ended up at Notre Dame, and all of these questions have to do with the year before. So there you go. What say you?
Yeah, PQ, it's an interesting thought for sure. I don't think that the entire universe-defining moment for Notre Dame and Mike Elko in 2024 came down to one play in 2023. People forget Mike Elko was also the defensive coordinator at Texas A&M before he accepted the head coaching job at Duke. And so I think he was going to be in their pipeline naturally anyways, regardless of win or loss to Notre Dame. I think what you're trying to say here, PQ, is like, if Mike Elko beat Notre Dame, does he elect to stay at Duke and try to build something there? I think he still would have went to Texas A&M.
Me too.
And then for Riley Leonard, I mean, he got hurt in that game after the 4th and 16.
Yeah, so I forgot about that aspect of it. So that might have changed my opinion, by the way. Go ahead.
That one is a little bit more interesting because Riley Leonard was getting like round 1 draft grades heading into the 2024 season. And if he stayed healthy and continued to put up numbers, who knows? That one is interesting. I do think Mike Elko does still stay at Texas A&M, but I do also think that Notre Dame would have tried to pursue Riley Leonard if he still ended up in the transfer portal anyway. So I'll kind of err on the safe side here and say, yes, I still think the state of Notre Dame football is still the same. But the Riley Leonard one is interesting because if Notre Dame doesn't convert that 4th and 16, they just come out and knee the ball 3 times.
Right.
Game's over.
Yeah.
So that one's interesting.
Yeah, and the whole injury thing is super interesting because people forget the hype that was surrounding Riley Leonard going into that Notre Dame game from an NFL standpoint. Like he was getting some serious love at that point. And I realized that all hit the pooper as the season went on after he got hurt. But if he doesn't get hurt there and he continues to have that kind of a season, I don't know that he comes back to college. If he did come back to college, I think Notre Dame still pursues him, and I think Notre Dame gets him. Yeah, it's just a matter of would his injury have his non-injury in this world, would his non-injury have kept him in college or not? That's the question.
Yeah, I mean, and then you got to think, you go and you look at what he did last season. One, he started out the season with a big win over Clemson where he played extremely well, showed off his athleticism. So, I mean, Duke would have had wins over, let me see here. That is not right. I have no idea what I'm looking at on here. What in the world? There we go. I mean, in 2023, they would have had wins over number 9 Clemson, 28-7. They would have had a win over number 11 Notre Dame at home. Then they went on to play at Florida State and at Louisville in back-to-back games. If Riley Leonard's 100% healthy for those, who knows how those games turn out? I mean, even with Riley Leonard not 100% healthy, it was 38-20. That Florida State team at that time was kind of humming. I think they would have had a shot to beat Louisville. They lost to North Carolina 47-45, who was ranked in double overtime. So I definitely think that it would have been a possibility that if he balled out in those games and got a win over Notre Dame, he would have went to the league.
Yeah, me too. I think that's a safe bet. And then a lot of things are different, right? Yep. There's a lot of things different if you're a Notre Dame fan at that point moving forward.
Sure is.
All right. Welcome, Brian. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Got some breaking news.
Yeah, so before you get to that, make sure you hit the like button, everybody. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell for random shows just like this that could pop up out of nowhere. You want to have that notification bell hit. And, of course, you want to jump on boards.irishbreakdown.com to get all of the up-to-minute intel when it comes to recruiting. Definitely want to do that. So definitely jump on the boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Brian Driscoll, welcome to the show. And I understand that something may have just gone down right around the 2 o'clock Eastern mark.
Yeah. So I got my Gap Closer shirt on, got word last night. We felt that this has been trending in a good direction for a while now. I've had Kari Adams in my projected Notre Dame class for a little over a month now, but just got official word last night. Let you guys know our show is going to be a little bit different today. And he just went public at 2 o'clock. Kari Adams has committed to Notre Dame. Guys, this is an absolute big one, Vince. Let's dive into that now.
Yep. So Kari Adams, obviously cornerback out of Maryland, went to Loyola Blakefield High School. He's a consensus 4-star. He picked Notre Dame over the likes of Penn State, Maryland, South Carolina, and Michigan. He's 6'1", 175, the 18th overall commit in the 26 class, the 8th on the defensive side of the ball, and the 3rd defensive back in this group. So, Brian, this is a massive pickup for Notre Dame. It is one that was not scheduled.
No, it wasn't, right.
And here we are with this information.
Last night, he was going to go live at 2.
Yeah, right.
But it wasn't anything he put out publicly. It wasn't anything like that. And I'll just get this out of the way now. I know that there was kind of some thought. I shouldn't know because I don't know anybody felt this way. But anyone thinking like, oh, is this kind of taken away from Joey O'Brien's moment tonight? That has nothing to do with it. We'll talk more about that later. But like, this is just something where it's a good thing that this is going down. This is a big pickup. Notre Dame has been really pushing hard for Kari Adams for a long time. And guys, this is a big one because not only, Vince, is this a big-time pickup for Notre Dame, but one of the things about recruiting is it's great to get big-time players, but you want to make sure that those big-time players are also not going to your teams that you're trying to play. And you're trying to, continue to beat Penn State for titles and Oregon for titles and teams like that. So you get a kid like this, you're not only getting a big impact, but you're making sure he doesn't go to another big-time program. And this is a state that Notre Dame has not done well in, guys. They get the occasional player from there, Sam Mustipher, Cam Hart, but it's not a state they do it really well with, even at the private school level. So being able to dip into the state of Maryland for one of their, I think, 2 best players in the state, along with the defensive end that's, a 5-star kid, is huge for Notre Dame. This is a really big one, really, really big one.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I'm really excited about this one. To be perfectly honest with you, Brian, when you called me last night and you told me this was going down, I was like, oh, okay. It's going to be a fun little Friday afternoon, little fun Friday. You never know. So let's kind of get into this. We're going to treat this like we do most commitments, but it doesn't, this is still huge. I'm so excited about this. But
we don't normally interrupt mailbags for
That's what I'm saying.
This type of thing, but this is a big enough one where I was like, yeah.
Yeah, this is a big
Yeah.
one. So we are going to follow our normal kind of routine with how we do commitment shows. And so I'm going to kick it to you, Brian, to talk about the backstory on Kari Adams and kind of how this whole thing went down and how it, culminated in this this call to Notre Dame saying, hey, you know what, I'm ready to do this like right now.
Yeah, this is one of those ones. Mike Mickens is a very interesting recruiter because he is not one of those pushy guys. He's not someone who, really pushes kids to try to commit. He's not someone that panics. He's not someone that overreacts to early momentum. He's a grinder. He just, look, this is the kid I want, and I'm going to stay on it. And 3 months ago, I'm like, Kari Adams, I didn't really pay a lot of attention to Kari Adams because at the time he was not really a guy that you looked at and thought, okay, this is gonna be a guy Notre Dame's gonna get. This is gonna be a big time pickup and all those type of things. It just wasn't. It wasn't where that one was trending, and it was. There were other schools that were in a much better position with him, but Mike Mickens just stayed on it. You go through the process and started to kind of climb up the rankings, just slowly moving up the list with Kari Adams, and within the last couple months, you started to see things change a little bit in this recruitment. And as I said, Mike Mickens was just kind of slow and steady. And then Kari made a visit to Notre Dame in, I believe it was April. And that is when things really started to change for Notre Dame. So he obviously made his official visit this past weekend. But yes, it was April 3rd. He made a visit to Notre Dame. I wasn't actually paying a lot of attention to it. It was like, oh, this is good. It's a big-time player. But I'll be honest, I didn't think they had a snowball's chance in heck of getting that kid at that time. Coming out of that visit, though, the tone completely changed. And Notre Dame all of a sudden became a really big player for Kari Adams in that recruitment. But Mike Mickens didn't start to push. He didn't overreact. He just stayed on plan. Keep at it. And then it really started to change in May. And this is why, if you're on the message board, you know that I've started this thing this year where I'll kind of put out a projected class. And it's as close to making predictions as I'm going to make. It's sort of a, here's how I feel about things right now. And I put Kari Adams out there. And honestly, the board ignored it. Like, nobody talked about it because I think they were just kind of like, nah, whatever. And then slowly people started asking me about it. I'm like, guys, I think Notre Dame's a major player here. I think they're a major player here. Penn State and Oregon were the two big players. I don't think Penn State handled his recruitment very well. There's some things that I won't get into in a public format. That's going to be more for the backstory on the message board, just because I don't want to throw that business out there as in a big open setting. But I don't think Penn State handled that recruitment very well. And Notre Dame might have ultimately got him anyway, and I think they would have. But that helped Notre Dame because there was a draw. The draw to Penn State was the family really likes Anthony Poindexter, who coaches the DBs at Penn State. And they also really, it's a close program. And Penn State does really well in the Maryland, Virginia area. But coming out of that visit, I think Penn State started to quickly fade. And Mike Mickens and Notre Dame were right there to take benefit of that. Penn State also said that Penn State worked hard to try to they made a calculated risk, and that was to get Joey O'Brien and Kari Adams on that late May first open official visit weekend. The hope was that they could get those kids to commit and then not go on other visits. Didn't work with either player. With Kari Adams, he was adamant. It was a lot like the Jadon Blair recruitment last year from the standpoint of the family had a plan of what they were going to do, and they stuck with that plan for the most part. Coming out of that visit this weekend, felt great about where Notre Dame was. Sean and I have talked about it, and Sean's going to talk more about some of the stuff from the visit. He actually talked to Kari, talked to his coach. But coming out of that visit, the vibes were phenomenal about where it was going to go. But my thing was Oregon was still, let's see how it goes this weekend when he goes to Oregon. Well, I got word, I think it was Monday. Sean, when did I text you or call you about that? Was it Monday?
This is Monday afternoon.
Okay, and I said, hey, man, I think he's going to cancel the visit to Oregon. That's what my intel was telling me. That meant one thing, and, reached out to it. Now, that didn't mean Oregon was necessarily out, so I had to do some digging because he has been to Oregon. He just didn't go on an official visit to Oregon, but was told, look, he knew where he wants to go, and he wanted the recruiting process to be over. And Kari's not a real flashy, like always tweeting, always wanting to be interviewed. Yeah, look at me type of corner. He's a real, I wouldn't say quiet kid, but just a reserved young man. Sean's talked to him. He's not a guy that just is looking for the spotlight all the time. He wants to go play ball. He wants to go to class. He's a very strong student, all those type of things. And so he just was like, let's do it. And, decided to get it over with a lot sooner. So this was one of those ones where patience was needed. Notre Dame stuck with it. Mike Mickens does what he always does. It's the tortoise and the hare, type of recruitment type of thing that we talked about, for those older folks that remember that fable when we were kids, and he just got it done like he always does. And this is why I called Sean the other day and I said, there's another buddy. I said, number one, I got two statements to make to you. Number one, I have no idea how much money Mike Mickens makes. No clue. Honestly, don't know. Number two, I just know it's not enough. Dude deserves a raise. But this also speaks, Sean, to it, and I'll let you talk more about Kari's, the backstory, but this also speaks to what we've been saying forever, guys. Players like this have been out there always. Kari Adams is not a unique animal when it comes to the recruiting world, a big-time top 50 recruit. He's ranked in the top 40 by On3, who ranks him number 30. He's also ranked number 36 overall by 247 for now. Who knows where he's going to end up at 247 now that he's committed to Notre Dame. This is a kid that is a big time site or big time pickup. But guys like this have always been out there, Sean. This isn't a kid that they needed to make some academic exception for. He's not a kid whose parents wanted him to go to the flashy school. These kids have always been out there. This staff just goes out there, finds them, and grinds hard to get these kids in the appropriate manner, not during the recruiting visit manner, like some head coaches like to do, but like actually doing it the right way, where it's about building the relationship, building trust, building confidence. And the one thing about Mike Mickens is he's about as genuine of a dude as you're going to find, because he's like, I'm going to be honest with you. And if that means you don't want to come play for me, I'd rather you not come play for me because I was honest with you, rather than me giving you some sort of, spiel to try to convince you here. And then when you get here, it's not what I sold to you. But that's my part of the backstory. I know Sean's going to talk about how impactful this weekend was and how absolutely smart it was that Notre Dame got the people on campus around Kari Adams that they got around him.
Yeah, before we get to this official visit news or backstory, it's just interesting. I remember going back to April. It was huge to get him on campus for that unofficial visit. And you pointed out something, and I want to know if you thought about this, Brian. There was another guy that I think Notre Dame was probably in the hunt for during April that we thought they had a really good chance to get, a better chance to get, that ended up going to Penn State. And I wonder how that impacted Jazeel Hart. A lot of people thought his relationship with Mike Mickens was such that he might end up in the class, and then all of a sudden he picks Penn State. And then all of a sudden, like you said, things start to change after the April visit going into May.
It actually changed. Notre Dame dropped out of Jazeel Hart's sweepstakes for two reasons. One, they liked the kid a lot, but I didn't think they felt he was good enough to add as a third corner in the class, because we'll get to class impact about that. But number two is they dropped out when they realized, hey, we got a legitimate shot at getting Kari Adams. And it basically turned into, we don't need a third corner. We're only going to take a third corner if it's the right kind of high-level player. And as much as they liked a lot about Jazeel, I think there were some questions about his speed that made them say, I don't know if that's the move we want to make right now that Aiden Pouncey's committed. Because remember, that commitment impacted this whole thing too. That changed the game too, getting Aiden Pouncey to commit. You've got Aiden Pouncey in the class. You have Chaz Smith in the class. You've had Chaz on campus a couple times. You feel much more solid about his commitment. I think those things all factored in, but really the final piece to Notre Dame backing out of that and why Jazeel then started trending to Penn State was because Notre Dame was in a good place. And then I think Penn State had a pretty good idea about where things stood, that they were, not that he was going to go to Notre Dame, but that they were in trouble with Kari, with Notre Dame, with Oregon, and then Michigan made a very hard push the last month or so with him as well. They knew that they were fading. Now, their fans didn't know it, and their moderators didn't know it from things that I've been sent. But, Sean, I've been telling you now for about a month that, look, dude, I think they're going to get this kid. And that's partly why they backed off of Jazeel Hart, who they liked a lot. I love trolling Penn State, but if you're a Penn State fan watching this and you're all upset about this, you should be, because Notre Dame's dominating you right now. But Jazeel Hart's a good football player. Like, I don't care what his ranking says. That's a good football player. I know he's a 3-star now, but Sean and I both grade him as a 4-star recruit. That's a good football player. But Jazeel Hart, who's a good football player, is not on the same level as a guy like Corey Adams. He's just not. And if Notre Dame would have taken Jazeel Hart, I'd have been okay, great. I like that kid a lot. He's tough, he's smart, he's physical. But I even in my breakdown that I sent to Jazeel, because he asked me, hey, could you send me, the breakdown that you posted out? I even said in there, like, I got questions about his speed. That's my one big knock on him. But you don't have that question about Corey Adams, as you guys are going to find out when we pop in the film. But that's really where that one went, Sean, is once Notre Dame really felt like, okay, we got Aiden Pouncey in the class, and then also you're doing really well with Corey Adams. That's when Notre Dame felt like, hey, let's put all our chips in the Corey Adams basket, because if we miss, we're good. We're good with where we're at. We love Aiden Pouncey. We love Chaz Smith. But with the trends that they're going, that they would like to have more sort of just more corners that can play together, potentially do more 3-man stuff. Plus Aiden Pouncey's 6'3". He's going to be over 200 pounds. If there's a situation where he can't start at cornerback because of who's starting there, but there's a needed safety, Aiden Pouncey grades out almost as well at safety as he does corner. Yeah. So I think that flexibility adds to that too, Sean. So
that is the first bookmark where the shift started to happen. And then there's a second thing that I thought that we heard early on before Notre Dame started gaining momentum that might play into something that might happen later on today, possibly, is that we heard that it more than likely, if he goes to one particular school, then another top recruit more than likely might not go to that school.
Yeah.
And like people were saying that.
Yeah. And Penn State people were saying that.
Penn State people were saying that.
Because at the time, they didn't think they were going to get Joey O'Brien.
Exactly.
And that's what they were trying to.
And so his official visit, he comes, the relationship with, look, we can't overstate the work that Mike Mickens did with this young man in a short period of time. Like we said, in the month of April, working to get him on campus for the unofficial. He gets on campus for the unofficial. They grab his attention. And not only do they grab his attention, then the official visit. Like I said, I told you this, Trev, you might not be able to really capture this. Vince, I'm sure Vince can capture it. And I told Brian, I haven't seen or felt the energy after an official visit weekend probably since the 90s with the football banquet. And that's when we had to read about it. There was no social media. You had to read about it in the days and weeks to come, and how Notre Dame would just take that football banquet weekend and just flip kids that were committed elsewhere, get all of their top 100 players locked in. And what we're seeing coming off of the energy we're seeing coming off of this official visit weekend is very similar. They were very strategic. Aiden Pouncey wasn't supposed to visit. He was supposed to be on campus this weekend. He comes up to be paired with Joey O'Brien, who was also supposed to be on campus originally this weekend, and moved up his visit to the 13th because he wanted to make his decision earlier. So all of these things ended up happening, and Notre Dame just played chess. They really played chess, setting everything up, creating the personalities. I think all of the feedback, or one of the things I heard most, was about how all of these personalities instantly got along. And it wasn't just positionally or a certain group. The entire group together, where they were commits, recruits, they were just like you. We were just family. It just felt like we were already a class. And so when you get that type of vibe, kudos to Notre Dame being able to create that, the positional coaches in their conversations with the kids leading up to the official visits to raise the expectations and the excitement and everything and then the way they went out, I think one of the special treats, in my opinion, that made a lot, especially for not Jazeel Hart, but Corey Adams' family, because talking to his coach Rich Holzer, Loyola, Blakefield, and Towson, I think you kind of get that his mom was going to be an important part of this decision.
Yeah.
From talking to the coach and from the feedback from this weekend, which leads me to how important the time spent at Coach Freeman's home
Yeah.
And the way the families embrace one another. It wasn't just the chemistry with the players. The families were acting like they were part of the Notre Dame family and connecting. And so when you have that and you see all of the families, Sullivan Garvin's mom, all these families are tweeting, posting on social media, talking about the visit. That's just it's very rare that you get that type of interaction from players and families collectively coming off an official visit weekend. So I talked to Kari after the first day that Saturday morning. He said everything was great. I'm liking it a lot. I said, okay, I'll log back with you, after your visit's done. So when I finally get back to him, he's talking about the energy. He's talking about being with the guys. He's talking about the photo shoot. He's talking about running out the tunnel and being shocked and surprised, and they're standing there not knowing what's going on. And then when it finally happens, how, it leads to a midfield conversation with Marcus Freeman. And he's talking to all of them, talking about you guys are ready to be getting ready to be part of something special. And it's like all of this at one moment, that moment for a lot of these young men kind of sealed the deal. Like, you know what? This is it. This is where I want to be. And I'm looking forward to talking to Kari a little bit more later on today to find out when the actual decision was made. Because if you go back, he gets home on Monday. They have workouts Monday morning. So he rushes back after he leaves the official visit. Coach Holzer said, I told him he didn't have to come to practice, but he showed up to an early workout at 6 a.m. in the morning. He's there. He said, look, he's a humble kid. He's a quiet kid. He's a leader. We talked about the visit during the workouts. Then we had practice that afternoon. He was still talking to me about the official visit. And he literally said, this is Coach Holzer. He talked about that visit more than he's talked about any other visit because he's normally a quiet kid. And then that's when Coach Holzer confirmed that Monday night, some of the rumblings you had heard, Brian, he confirmed to me that, yes, the mom says she's done. It's time to make a decision. She doesn't want to go out to Oregon. And that was kind of like when you started to really feel like, okay, yeah, Notre Dame is probably going to get this kid. Because like I said, talking to Coach Holzer and the vibes coming off that weekend, his mother was definitely a prominent part. He had a lot of respect for the Maryland coaching staff, and they built a great relationship.
That's why they made that visit this week.
They made that visit and honored that visit and gave them a last shot. But I think even before he went to Maryland, the decision had been made. Yeah, the decision had been made. So,
and he had another visit to make because he had canceled the Oregon visit. So,
and let's not look without even having to point the finger out west. I want to stay in South Bend and just say, look, a weekend like this, as a staff and a program, is coming on the heels of what some people might call a somewhat topsy-turvy offseason from an administrative and recruiting standpoint. And it made it really tough to get off to the start. And they got in late on certain kids because of the turnover.
Yeah. And they're going to lose some kids because of that.
And they'll lose some kids before. But for them to recover the way they have recovered as a staff, administration, assistants, analysts, everybody.
Now, what's interesting, Sean, is this is one that Mike Mickens has been on for a while.
Absolutely.
That's why Kari didn't fall through the cracks, because that was one Mike Mickens was on for a minute. And I think when the transition was made, this is a kid that Mike Mickens turned the heat up a little bit on, as far as like, let's make a bigger priority. So I want to point to something you talked about. Well, and it also doesn't help that you're coming off of a 14-2 season. You guys want to know what impact does a season like that have? You're seeing it. It's not a coincidence. Not that look, Notre Dame would be recruiting very well right now. If they'd have gone 10-3 again, they wouldn't be recruiting, because they recruited well after a 9-4 season, and they recruited well after a 10-3 season before, because Marcus Freeman's teams are always going to recruit well. This is a different level right now, in my opinion. And we got to see how they finish, but this is a different level across the board. And it's all the things we've talked about, but it's also the fact that they're now selling, hey, nobody can say to you, you can't win there. Like, no, you can't say that to a recruit. You can't. Texas can't say it. There's only one staff that says Notre Dame can't win championship. There's only one that can say that right now, and that's Ohio State. That's it. And Georgia can't say that anymore. Penn State can't say that anymore. Bama can't say that anymore. Y'all lost to Vanderbilt. I mean, like, that's the thing. That's why this season was so important. I also think it's really important to talk about, Sean. Let's give a huge shout out to the parents of the Notre Dame commits, not only in this class, but there's also a couple parents in the current freshman class that are still very involved in recruiting, talking to parents, letting them know how their journey was, what their process was like. It was also smart for Notre Dame to get Jadon Blair and Kari Adams around, Joey O'Brien and Kari Adams around some of those players, getting them around Jadon Blair and around Leonard Moore and around Dallas Golden and those type of guys who's on campus now. The connection was very important in this recruitment. The fact that's what got mom more comfortable. I'll tell you right now, Grayson McHugh's mom did not want him to come to Notre Dame a week ago today. Did not. And that's why there was some confusion about what he was ultimately going to do. He wanted Notre Dame. Mom did not. The way the offensive line moms interacted with her and the way she watched her son interact with the other Notre Dame commits is what ultimately said, hey, this is what you want to do. I support you. I think there was, not that Kari Adams' mom wasn't pro Notre Dame. She was, but like most mothers, like my mother was, well, I want you to do what's best for you, but I'd prefer you do what's best for you much closer to home. That's kind of where it was, right? I think her getting out and getting another chance to see Notre Dame and getting to sit down and be at Marcus Freeman's home, getting to meet his wife, getting to meet his kids, getting to meet all the other moms played a big role in this. And that's what Marcus Freeman's selling. It's not just about football, but now that the football piece is so good, it makes selling all the other stuff so much easier. And that's why you're seeing the success they're having, because, guys, let's be honest about this. This doesn't happen 3-4 years ago, this type of kid. Now, Benjamin Morrison was an elite player too, but he was a flew under the radar kind of kid. Bama found him, Notre Dame found him, Washington found him, but a lot of big-time schools weren't all Benjamin Morrison, except the really great DB evaluators, a.k.a. Mike Mickens, Nick Saban, and Jimmy Lake, right? Like, when they were all in college football, those are three of the absolute best evaluators and developers of DBs. That's why they were the only big-time programs really pushing for Benjamin Morrison. This is a different deal. This is a kid that everybody wanted. And Mike Mickens did not get intimidated by that. He did not be like, well, we got no shot with that kid. We're too far behind. No, he just kept at it. Because at the end of the day, here's what Mike Mickens knew. And I'll share a story with you guys. I was talking to somebody, and it was during Christian Gray's recruitment. And I was having lunch with somebody. And at the time, it was when Christian Gray was considered fading from Notre Dame, and it was LSU and Ohio State and, DBU battle and all that stuff. And I asked this guy that I was talking to, I said, what do you think that Notre Dame is going to do? And he was like, nothing. I'm like, what do you mean nothing? He's like, Mickens isn't going to change anything. And I said, why? He said, because Mickens knows he's a Notre Dame kid, and he's just going to let him enjoy this particular moment. And then he's going to remind him he's a Notre Dame kid. That's what worked for Kari Adams. Mickens knew at the end of the day, it's going to click with this kid. You're a Notre Dame kid. Just like he felt that way about Aiden Pouncey when me and a lot of other people didn't think Aiden Pouncey was going to end up at Notre Dame. It's crazy because 2 of the 3 commits in this class are kids that if you'd have asked me 4 months ago, does Notre Dame have a shot at these kids? I'd have said, no. It'd be nice. It'd be great to have them. They're studs. But Notre Dame's not going to get those kids. And here we are sitting here on June 20th, and they're both in the class.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I wrote down to make sure that I point out his recruitment is very similar to Christian Gray. Very similar from talking to both of those kids. I just want to give you something that Rich Hoser said to kind of close it up. He said he's a humble, quiet kid. He's a great leader for us, and he's great in the classroom. He's not impressed by the flash of all of the recruiting stuff, and this is a long-term decision for him and his family. When Coach Hoser told me that Monday evening, I was like, oh, he's coming to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Like, that's coming off of what the family had shared with him. So for me, that's when I felt like, yeah, they're going to get this kid, and knowing that the Oregon trip is going to be canceled And just seeing him go out of respect just tells you a lot about that family and about him and the integrity they operate with, that they, kind of honored the relationship that Maryland had built with him for a long time, and went up there for that last visit before ultimately making a decision. So great get by Mike Mickens and great get by the staff. Go ahead.
Last thing before Vince takes us to the next section. I think that Maryland visit was also helpful too, because it's nice to get somewhere else and to hear other coaches and kind of hear a spiel about somebody else, so you can kind of try your best to take the emotion out of the Notre Dame visit as much as you could out of the conversation.
Yeah.
And then get back to, okay, is this really what I want to do? The emotion of the amazing weekend is gone. You went to Maryland. We talked to this. Oregon's trying to talk to us to get us to visit, all these different things. Okay, what is ultimately what I want to do based on the factors that have always mattered? And it just another one from this past weekend. It's going to be a fun ride.
Just another domino, right? We were talking about that when we were talking about McHugh earlier this week, and he was the first domino. Kari Adams is the second domino. We'll see how many dominoes fall from this weekend after this afternoon. But one thing we like to talk about, obviously, we got the backstory. We know how this all happened and how he's going to end up matriculating over to Notre Dame. But what is the class impact? How does he impact this class? He's the 18th overall. He is the 8th on defense, and he's the 3rd defensive back in the 2026 class. So, Brian, I'll let you kick this thing off. How does he impact this class?
Well, there's two ways that a recruit impacts a class, right? One is, do you meet the numbers need? The two is, are you adding impact talent? Well, once Aiden Pouncey committed, there was no need to recruit another cornerback for numbers. You were only going to recruit another cornerback because you felt the guy could be a difference maker. And that's ultimately what the deal here is. Also, you do have to look at it when this class arrives. They will be in their one and only year with Leonard Moore, most likely. And they're likely last year with Christian Gray. So there's going to be after 2026, most likely, so as long as there's no injuries, you're going to have a very key exodus of 2 starting cornerbacks. The one thing that's helped Notre Dame in recent years is they've never had 2 corners leave in the same year. I mean, even Julian Love and Troy Pride were a year apart. And then you look at, obviously Cam Hart and Benjamin Morrison were a year apart. And obviously this past year, Benjamin Morrison and Christian Gray and Leonard Moore are likely going to be 2 years apart at best. If, at worst, let's say Christian Gray has a monster season and decides to go pro, you're still a year apart. But unless Christian Gray has that monster season this year and goes pro, which, honestly, I hope happens, because if Christian Gray is good enough to be a first-round draft pick, maybe early second-round draft pick, that means he had a monster year. It means Notre Dame's really flipping good. Then you could maybe have that. But I think as of right now, it's most likely that those 2 are going to leave at the same time. So going into the sophomore year of this class, there is going to be a need there. So I think that said, okay, we don't have to be afraid of numbers, because sometimes you got to make sure you're not bringing in too many guys in a class. And so that was an interesting part, but it basically just came down to this, guys, is number one, Kari Adams is too good not to take. And so what he adds to the class, Vince, is an impact player. That's a perfect fit for what Mike Mickens looks for. He's long, he's rangy, he's fast, he's athletic. He's not just fast, but he's also athletic. Very quick feet. Trev, you and I were talking about it. You mentioned to me his ability to just plant and drive on the football is exceptional. You guys will see that on film. Part of that's quickness, part of that's length. He's a smart football player. He's not very technically sound, which you'll see on film, because he's a two-way player, and his high school coaches should be doing exactly what they're doing right now, which is letting him play both sides of the ball. It'll be up to Mike Mickens to teach him all those finer points that some guys get who are just one-way players, or like in Benjamin Morrison's case, have a father who played defensive back in the National Football League. You're going to be a little bit more advanced, just like Joe Alt was when he got to Notre Dame, because his dad was a Kansas City Chiefs Hall of Fame player. So the talent was just too good to pass up. The fit was too good to pass up, Vince. What is Mike Mickens like? Length, check. Highly athletic, check. Speed, check. He loves two-way players, check. He loves competitive kids, check. Sean's example of the 6 a.m. after he gets off his visit, he's at the school working out. That's the kind of thing that I would expect. I'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense that Leonard Moore did that. Oh yeah, it makes sense that Benjamin Morrison did that. Like, those are the kind of kids that Mike Mickens likes. He checks that box. And then also as Notre Dame transitions to more of a, likely they're going to still be a heavy man team, but maybe a team that mixes it up. You want to make sure you have guys that can be versatile in the coverages they can thrive in. And Kari Adams' skill set is one where I think he could be an elite cover corner and man. And I think he also, with that range, that athleticism, he can also be a high-level guy in zone coverage as well. But he checks all those boxes, Vince, and that's the need he fit. Impact player, perfect fit for the system, perfect mentality and mindset for the room. Guys, Kari Adams, if he's smart enough to get into Notre Dame, he's smart enough to know what's signed in the last 2 years. And he's smart enough to know what's already in the class. And it just said, he didn't care. I'm going to go compete because it's not just about finding the easiest path. Notre Dame offers me a lot of other things beyond just football. But Mike Mickens has also shown if I have more than 2 corners that can play, I'd rather play more than 2 corners at a time. And, and so that was kind of the pitch. So talk about class impact, guys, that matters. But the other part too is we talk a lot about perception in recruiting. Trev, we talk a lot about perception. And when you can add a top 50 recruit, which is what this young man is, that's going to kind of alert people and other recruits. You don't think Elijah Golden knows about what just happened when he's on his visit right now to Notre Dame? You don't think other players are saying like, dude, Notre Dame ain't playing around. They just beat Oregon for a kid. They just beat Penn State for a kid that everybody thought was going to go to Penn State. Trev, we talk about it. Perception matters. When you land a top 50 corner, that sends a message to college football and to other recruits.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, you go and look at some of the barriers and some of the stereotypes that Notre Dame has just been absolutely decimating in the last 6 months. And you go back and think about, well, Notre Dame can't compete with the SEC. They can't run with the SEC. Look what they did in the Sugar Bowl. Well, Notre Dame can't make a run to the title. Like they're just, Penn State plays in the Big Ten, and they have experience against Ohio State and Michigan every year. They just played Oregon, and Notre Dame knocks that barrier down. Started to see a little bit of shades of it, I won't lie, in the first half of the national championship games. Oh, this game's over. Notre Dame's not coming back. And then slowly but surely they climb back into the game for a multitude of different reasons. But fact of the matter is they did. Now, you go and you think about what has happened so far this offseason. There's been coaching staffs before at Notre Dame that kind of just catch fire. Like it's maybe just all the right ingredients at the right time. Somebody departs to take another opportunity, and they take a step back. But then you go and you look, okay, gosh, you lose a guy like Dylan McCullough. How do you go replace him? You go get Juwan Sider. Well, now it's the recruiting barrier. Like all of these things that you can use for anti-recruiting tactics against Notre Dame, those are starting to fall. You can't compete for a national championship anymore. You can't use, they don't have that style of play, though they don't recruit that style of player anymore. And now you can't even
in
say
the NFL anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. You can't use the NFL anymore. You can't use player development anymore for all the players that have taken massive steps in Coach Freeman's tenure. And now you can't even say, look, blue chips guys just don't go to Notre Dame. They get the hidden 3-star gems that will break out in their junior season. Ben Morrison didn't listen to that. Leonard Moore didn't listen to that. I mean, even on the offensive side of the ball, Anthony Knapp stepped in and started at left tackle at the University of Notre Dame for 15 games. Can't use that anymore either. They're going with a young guy at quarterback this upcoming season. So all of these ingredients are starting to come together, and it's knocking down all these barriers. And I got to say, the ride has been absolutely awesome to watch happen. Been ups and downs, but it's, if you tell me that I had experienced some of the downs in the last 6 months to get to this moment right here in the offseason, and the state of Notre Dame's program where it's at, I would have taken them for sure.
I think the class impact for me is that you start to get kids like Kari Adams. You start to get kids like Aiden Pouncey, and you forget about a kid like Chaston Smith, who's a really good football player. And I think that is the type of roster that Marcus Freeman is starting to build, that really think they weren't able to get, like Brian had mentioned. These type of kids are Notre Dame kids. They do have interest in coming to a Notre Dame program if you will recruit them and show them that they are Notre Dame kids. But when you start to get those kids, like any other roster, you forget about the kids that might not be as ballyhooed, coming into the class. And I think that's what you're going to start to see, not just in the defensive back room. I think you're going to start on the defensive line. I think you can see that in other areas where we've been waiting for Notre Dame to turn the corner, per se, in recruiting. And so we said we're just three seasons or 3 cycles away from Notre Dame's defensive back room being a question from a recruiting standpoint. And now I don't think any of us have a question when it comes to roster talent and recruiting when it comes to Mike Mickens in the defensive back. So that's how quickly the narrative can change when you do things right. Or, as a good salesman always says, you can't be a good salesman unless you believe in the product. And Marcus Freeman really believes, he's authentic with it. He believes that Notre Dame is going in college football. That's what he believes. And that's what he portrays, exudes from him. And so the authenticity is what you get on the recruiting trail, not just from Marcus Freeman, but from the entire staff. And I think we're starting to see some of the benefactors of that. And to be honest, you go back, that Orange Bowl, who knows? A kid like Kari Adams sitting there watching the Orange Bowl, seeing the Penn State wide receivers come away with 0 receptions.
And then Notre Dame's guys are torching the Penn State.
If that game was the inverse had happened, who knows? This kid might have ended up at Penn State.
It could not have gone better for Notre Dame in the battle of for DBs with Penn State.
Absolutely.
Could not have gone better.
Absolutely.
I wanted to say this last thing, Vince, before we go into the next section, which I know is your favorite portion of the show. But I'm something I'm going to look into, Sean, and if you talk to the people that you know that are close to him, I'm very curious to know what impact the fact that they already have Ebenezer Iwatade, Rodney Dunham, and Tiki Hole in the class had on a kid like Kari Adams. Knowing that, dude, they just landed 2 5-star DNs. On 3 has them as 5 stars anyway. Did that matter? But that's the whole point, is we can have this conversation because Notre Dame just went and landed some stud D linemen. And now they're adding more stud DBs to the mix, and that's how you build that kind of elite defense. It's like, look, we got to be great coachers and great developers. I was having this debate with someone on Twitter the other day, and I think the guy was very misguided, but it was a polite conversation. But he was talking about how Notre Dame takes really good players and turns them into elite. And I said, no, I think that's where you're wrong. I think people have been underselling Notre Dame's recruiting the last couple of years, and Sean and I have been pounding the table. Vince and I have been pounding the table. That, guys, you don't understand. They're bringing in way better players than you think they are. Everybody said, well, hopefully Mike Mickens can work magic with Benjamin Morrison. And I'm sitting the whole time saying, he doesn't need to. This kid's really flipping good. It's just don't ruin him. You're getting elite talent, and then great coaches are making sure they play to their elite potential. And that's just another example of this. So it's a big one.
Absolutely right. And you are also absolutely right about the fact that this next portion is my favorite portion of any recruiting show that I am a part of. And it is the film breakdown. And this is where anybody that's ever been a coach loves to watch film. And it's one of my favorite things to do. And so we're going to throw in Kari Adams' junior year film, his highlights. And we're just going to kind of break it down as we see it, as we go through it. I'm fired up for this part, Brian.
Couple things I love it too, Vince. A couple things you're going to see. Number one is he plays both sides of the ball, so just prepare for that. His team is in blue and white helmets, but this is a very talented. No, it's blue and white helmets. Start having a second thought. They play a challenging schedule. Here he's playing wide receiver. First thing you see, guys, long and fast. Like, takes one clip, and he's already like putting the finger up, like, I'm scoring, and he plays with a lot of energy that you would not expect from him when you get to know him and talking to people around him. He plays with some fire. But you see that length. He's got easy speed. He's a kid that he gets to top speed quickly. I think he's run like a 10.6 something in the 40-meter and the 100-meter 40-meter dash. That would be bad. In the 100-meter dash,
that would not be good.
He ain't coming to Notre Dame. But you see the speed, but he gets his top speed in a hurry. He's got really good acceleration. It's easy speed. Like, look at that. It's real easy speed. And I honestly don't think Kari plays at full speed as much as I'd like him to. So I think there's another level of gear there for him. But also the long speed is outstanding, Trev. This is one of many examples you'll see on film where he's the plant and drive. His footwork isn't even good here. That's the crazy thing. It's just not even great footwork. But look how quickly he goes from basically just standing there to planting his feet and driving downhill, and then closing on it, and then makes the interception on the play. So
It shows good instincts,
Yeah.
obviously. I mean, he knows where the ball is going to go. He's watching the quarterback's eyes. Those are all good
Yeah.
things. His technique isn't fantastic,
Yeah.
but that's why you have Mike Mickens.
Like this play, he's not even running hard.
Right.
Like he's almost jogging and just runs right past this kid. That's something that I do want to see more of Kari. That's why I don't have Kari as a 5-star player yet. Is there some technical things? I almost think he's not challenged in high school. Plays in a good area, but is there anybody that's really like as good as him, like naturally as good as him? I don't know. He plays at a different gear in some of the bigger games. That's part of the things he'll have to learn. But goodness, the talent is really there, and you can see it. Easy strider. Physically, Sean, doesn't he remind you a lot of Cam Hart? Like as far as 6'2", skinny, but a nice frame. And then Cam ended up being 207, and I can see Kari Adams growing to 202 because right now his size, like his not size like height and length, but his body size, his girth, I should say, is not where you want it to be. Leonard Moore's wasn't as a junior either. He filled out. I think Kari's got one of those Leonard Moore, Cam Hart type of frames where he's going to be 200 pounds when it's all said and done. He plays physical and he's a willing tackler, but he's just not strong yet. He's got to get stronger. Once that comes, look out, fellas, because the natural God-given ability, the instincts, the football IQ, you talked about it, the work ethic, that's all there. But you guys will see, like, the technique is not super great right now. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah. No, I was just going to you said he ran a 10-6. He also ran a 10-3 split in the 4x1 of the relay. He had a 10-3 split in that same pin relay. So, and talking to him, I remember sharing with Brian. I talked to him after that, and I was congratulating him, said, man, I see you went out there and took care of business this weekend. He was like, I was all right. So that just shows you his mindset.
And not in a false humility way, too, Sean.
No.
I remember you telling me that. It wasn't. You said it wasn't like a fake, like, it's all right. It was like, I thought I could have done better. Look at this transition right here, real quick, Sean. This is what I like, though. This is what I'm talking about. Look how quickly, guys. This is not a textbook teach tape footwork. This is not good technical footwork. But look how quickly he opens and runs and gets on that kid. I like the fact, Trev, he has a really good feel of playing the receiver as well.
Yep.
He understands proper leverage. He kind of plays inside out on corners. He doesn't get too high. He stays right in phase real well. Very good feel, and that's why I think I love the man coverage potential of him, and you see it on this film, Trev.
Yeah, absolutely. Great feel for the game, and that it goes to show. I mean, he's flat-footed at the top of a lot of his coverages. But, man, when he makes a decision to go and plants, flies upfield. Great vertical speed. But similar to how we talked about Grayson McHugh when he committed earlier this week, is, you kind of think that maybe his experience as a defensive end helps him out at tackle. Whereas same with Kari Adams, his feel for the game as a wide receiver, I have to imagine helps him play leverage, knows when to attack which shoulder as a corner.
Doesn't fall for double moves. He shows patience, all that.
Actually, I think right here he has a feel for double moves.
Look at that. This is great. He doesn't bite on the route. They're trying to get him on an out and up. He stays in phase. If he jumps on this and overreacts and doesn't, he's going to jump on this and he's toast, but he stays in phase. And look at the easy speed too, guys. Just that's such an impressive play.
Yeah. No, I really like this film. The first couple of clips on his film that he's in press, I also like too, because you can see the tools that Mike Mickens is going to have to work with. Not a finished product by any means, but you see the tools.
Well, I see his instincts in zone, to be perfectly honest with you, where he, one of the principles of zone is it's kind of like man, as long as somebody's in your zone and then you peel off and you go to somebody else, like you can tell his instinct to come off of one guy, come on to another, because that's where the ball is headed. I think he does a really, really good job of that. And again, his footwork's not great, but his instincts are good. You can clean up footwork because he's shown that he can do it. He can do the footwork. He is smooth, but that's why he's gotten away with being able to do what he's doing because of his instincts and his athletic ability.
And a lot of two-way players aren't super great technicians.
Because they're not focused on one particular side of the ball. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And it's just when you're devoting time to both sides, it's not like in college where you're going to practice every day and you're focused on one thing. You spend half your practice working on offense, half your practice on working on defense. If you're a high school coach, I just got to teach the kid basics technically, make sure he knows the plays.
Correct.
That's the more
100%.
important thing.
100%.
And so the coaches have a choice. I can either keep them on defense and just teach them the finer points of the game or play them both ways. Well, the job of his high school football coaches is to go out and win football games for their high school. And I actually think it's a good thing to let these kids play both ways. Joey O'Brien, who's going to make a decision later tonight, plays both ways. Aiden Pouncey plays both ways. And the reason I think that's so – Christian Gray played both ways. Leonard Moore played both ways. The reason I think that's good is because if your DB coach is worth a darn, he can teach you the technique in an offseason, especially if you're an early enrollee. Leonard Moore wasn't even an early enrollee, and Mike Mickens got him ready to go. Because if the talent is there, getting the footwork down, that's part of it. That's kind of what Mike Mickens gets paid to do. But you learn so many valuable lessons by being a two-way player. Mm-hmm. And you see that. I think that's a great point, Vince, is that playing receiver, he knows some of the tells. He knows what a receiver is trying to do to him. He's trying to do it himself. Yep. And I think that allows him to play as a really smart football player. So Dallas Golden's another one. Yes, Michael. Dallas Golden's another. Mark Zachary was a two-way player. So not everybody. Cree Thomas didn't play a lot both ways. I don't think that Benjamin Morrison played a whole lot of offense in high school, from what I remember. Jaden Mickey, I don't remember playing a whole lot of offense. I mean, not everybody's a two-way player, but a lot of them are.
But if you've got an elite athlete,
there's a reason for that.
If you've got an elite athlete, they're probably going to go both ways, unless you're
like Cree Thomas didn't go both ways because they had Dalen Sharper, who committed to Stanford, and then Devin Fitzgerald, who's going to decide between like Notre Dame, Clemson, and Stanford at some point in time soon, right? So
that's an embarrassment of riches.
Needs there,
Exactly,
right. Where Joey O'Brien's the best receiver on his high school team. Dallas Golden was the best receiver on his high school team and best running back and best cornerback. Probably was their best quarterback. You know, I mean, you look at Mark Zachary, he was their best receiver coming out. I mean, that was needed. Cree Thomas didn't need to be because they had Devin Fitzgerald and Dalen Sharper. So that's part of it too. Some schools don't have that need. You don't need to play both ways in IMG. You don't need to play both ways at St. Joseph and Philly. But at Loyola Blakefield, they needed him to play both ways. And so that's why when I say he's not technically sound, that's not a shot at coaches. No. It's just like for some kids, it's like it's just kind of the way they are. Like
they just need him to go out and be an athlete.
I talked about Rob Larson and how well the coaches at Folsom teach their receivers. Well, Rico Flores wasn't a two-way player. He just only played receiver. Rob Larson's a one-way player. He only plays receiver. So it's easier for that coach who, I don't know who he is, but he does a phenomenal job because it's not an accident. Every kid that comes out of Folsom's a great route runner. It's not an accident. You know what I'm saying? But like, it's easier as a high school coach when you only have your guys. So I'll give you an example. So when I was in college coaching, all right, and I know some people love it when I tell the stories, but this is a great example. When we would be on a lot of special teams, my receivers weren't on it. So I would take my kids down and we would go work on red zone drills and different catching drills. And we'd work on sideline drills. I'd have them get on a knee and work on catching the ball low and turning. We could do those things because they were only receivers in their certain special teams that they just weren't on. And if we had a guy or two that was down there, they'd go down there. Well, in high school, at most high schools, when you go to special teams, it's all hands on deck. Yep. And your best athletes are down there. So all those things that I'm down here working on, that the IMG coach can work on, that the Folsom coach can work on maybe, you don't get to do those at a lot of high schools. You don't get to do that at Penn High School, Vince, because those kids are doing everything. So when it's defense 100%. Time, they're focused on defense. When it's special teams time, they're focused on special teams. Right. And that's why I say, yes, Kari has a lot of technical work. That's not a shot. Most kids do coming out of high school. And that's especially as juniors. This is him as a junior. But the tools are there. That's what you look for. I've said when I was recruiting, I didn't give a rip if a kid knew how to run a route. That was my job. That's what I got paid to do. I need to know they had the physical tools to do what I need them to do. And there's not a thing that Kari Adams lacks athletically at a high level to go be an elite cornerback. So that's why he's a top 100 guy for me right now. But it was one of the easiest 5-star upside grades I've given in the cycle.
Yeah, and last year he did play against some pretty good competition. Gonzaga's a big-time program out of the DMV area. Archbishop is a team they played out of that area. Then they went up and played Scranton out of PA. So it was a really good team. So he's going up against some pretty good competition. That's one of the things Rich Holzer, his coach, said. He won't have a problem transitioning because of the competition we play to college football. He'll be ready to go. So that's his mindset. Like you said, Brian, his family, like you said, like Jadon Blair, they have a plan. going into recruiting. His mother was kind of the spearhead.
Yeah.
They knew how they wanted to go about it. They know the plan that they want in college. They have a plan post-college going into the NFL, business, everything is mapped out, branding, all of that. They're thinking about that, very similar to the way Jadon Blair and his family handled their recruitment.
Sean, this year they played Scranton Prep, to your point. They played Georgetown Prep, it's a good program. They played Gonzaga, who's a annual powerhouse in there. They played Gilman out of Baltimore, where Victor Abiamiri was from, where I think wasn't who's the other guy, the DeJuan Lane that we were talking about when we were doing our Penn State DB breakdown the other day. Trev, you and I, DeJuan Lane was from Gilman. Obviously, Ambrose Wooden was also from Gilman. And Gonzaga is where Caleb Williams played. It's where, what's the kid that went to Stanford? Kevin Hogan, I believe, also played at Gonzaga. That's a big-time program. The two brothers, Kajando brothers from Alabama, are both from Gonzaga as well. They also played St. Mary's, which is a decent program. Mount St. Joseph is a big-time program. Archbishop Spalding has been good and has been really good in the past. They're a really good program. They played Milford Mill Academy, and they played Calvert Hall, who's another big-time program from that area. Archbishop Spalding is a team that went 12-0 this year in Maryland. So their competition, he is not wrong. That's not a coach exaggerating to hype up his kid. Their schedule is legit. I mean, it is absolutely legit. They play all those same teams. Their schedule this year is the same. They replace one Milford Mill. Actually, no, they play them. There's one team that they play this year that they didn't play last year. That's it. And so he's going to be tested, and that's also something that, like, that's one thing that Mike Mickens loved about Christian Gray, is that every week we knew Christian was going to get challenged. It was going against Ryan Wingo and Aaron Smith, and I mean, they were going against good players every week. And the kid that's at Oregon, Jalen, they played against Jeremiah Love, but Jeremiah McClellan, he went against him. So that's the thing about Kari, is when you watch him play, he's a standout, but he's a standout against really good competition. And he had 43 tackles last year, 4 interceptions, 12 pass breakups. He's an outstanding talent. Imagine what he's going to be when the technical part comes, and that's going to happen because he chose to play for Mike Mickens. So that's a no-brainer. You've never been like, man, Notre Dame's corners didn't play with good technique today. I mean, that for like a game, that there's a play here, play there, but man, he's going to get coached up, and it's what gets you excited about it.
So the final part that we like to talk about in our recruiting shows is what's next. What's next at the position, if anything? What's next on defense? What's next in recruiting? Just what's next? And Brian, I'll let you kick it off, and then you can throw it any way you want, any direction you want, either Trevor, Sean, however we want to go here.
Well, the biggest what's next, guys, is, I mean, who's just the next on the list? I mean, tonight at 7:15, Joey O'Brien, who is from the state of Pennsylvania, is going to make a decision. He's going to announce between Notre Dame, Oregon, Penn State, or Clemson. That's been one that's been back and forth in a lot of people's eyes. So that's what's next. I mean, that is literally what's next. And, whatever Joey decides, we'll go live tonight and talk about whatever it is he's going to decide and talk about what that means and then what's next for there. But if they're able to get Joey in the class, then the other guy that they really want is Nick Reddish. Now, Nick Reddish is probably the biggest enigma in the class, because I just don't really have a strong opinion of Nick Reddish because there's not a lot of sophomore film available. I've yet to find any game film of him, which is surprising where he's from. I thought I'd be able to find some more game film, but then he got hurt and missed his entire junior year because of a knee injury. All I know about Nick Reddish is Mike Mickens loves him. And that's kind of like, okay. Mike Mickens has been loving this kid for a year. Through the injury, all of it. Never has shied away from Nick Reddish. And then he's going to announce on July 11th. It's basically down to Notre Dame and Virginia Tech. But that's really what's left in the DB board. The visit with Donovan Webb got canceled this weekend. I think that was kind of a mutual thing. Notre Dame got on him late. They hadn't built a great relationship, and they knew what was happening today. And I think their focus was on, hey, let's try to get Joey and Nick and then call it a day. But what also you're seeing, guys, is Mike Mickens is already turned to a degree to the 2027 class. Getting Kari in the class now, you obviously got to keep recruiting these kids. But with Kari committing today and then Joey committing tonight, you're going to find out what his plans are, and then you're going to know what you need to do accordingly after that, whether it's we got to go after somebody else or, hey, we're kind of good. You've got Nick. Now it's just about closing on Nick Reddish and trying to get him in the class. But the rest of his efforts are now going to be geared towards, okay, 2027, you're up. And let's go try to, run this back and do the same thing again next year, which based on recent history, Sean, is pretty much what we expect to happen, so.
Yeah. I spoke to Nick Reddish last night, talking about what's next. Going back to what you said, he missed his entire junior year because of that knee injury. So I knew we had talked previously. I knew he started practice yesterday. So that was his first time back on the field in a long time with his teammates. And he was like, yo, it's just a blessing to be back out here, man. And I think the decision and for it to be July 11th lines up with the beginning of camp. He wants to get his feet under himself and then have the announcement come after the first couple of weeks of practice with his teammates. So I think the decision is kind of already made. It's just about when the date is going to actually take place. So he's trying to focus on, like you said, making sure he's good physically and making sure he can get back to doing what he needs to do for his team. And then once that's done and he feels good, that's why he put the date of July 11th. But, in my opinion, I think the decision is pretty much in it. Back and forth on certain things. But like you said, it's down to two teams at this point.
Above all else, as far as what's next, I don't really have much else to add. There's going to be some things that unfold from that really high-octane recruiting weekend that happened not so long ago. And right now, I know we try to we say a lot on the show, don't ride the highs and the lows of what the recruiting is. But right now, I'm, for lack of better words, just kind of enjoying the ride of what this is. Notre Dame is very quickly changing the narrative of what it means to attract and retain talent at a high level. And Kari Adams is a class-defining type of player that you bring in, and there's potentially more on the way. So I'm excited to watch the rest of this unfold, and I'm ready to rock, man. It's good stuff.
Last thing with Nick Reddish, I was going to say this before my mic went out, but it's an interesting pull for him because I think he really likes Notre Dame a lot. And Notre Dame's been a great place for a long time, but his older brother is a rising sophomore at Virginia Tech. And so there's that pull of that as well, which is what has made this decision more challenging for Nick. But he's a kid. Like if he commits Notre Dame, our breakdown of him is going to be different because I don't have a strong feeling of him. It's hard. I gave him a 3.5-star grade because of just some of the sophomore film I saw, and that's the best I can do. I almost didn't want to grade him at all, just because there's so little film of him. But like I said, there comes a point in time, guys, where you just certain people say they like a kid and you just give them the benefit of the doubt. And that's the kind of benefit of the doubt that Mike Mickens has earned with me when it comes to DBs like him. Yeah. So I'm not going to be negative on the kid because it's not even that I have questions about Nick Reddish. It's literally there's just not a lot of film to form a really strong opinion, and he didn't play any junior football. And that's really what it boils down to for me. But I'm very excited to see his senior film and see what he can do. But, if Mike Mickens says you can play, then I'm going to assume you can. And then I would just need to, it's like the old Ronald Reagan quote, right? Trust but verify. You know what I mean? Like I trust him, but I got to verify it. And we'll get that opportunity there. But and then just big picture, Vince, it's like what we talked about the other day. It's just keep closing on all the guys who are on campus. Keep closing on Caden Finley, Devin Fitzgerald, and, all the guys talk about. You've got Elijah Golden on campus, and that is 100% of Al Washington's attention the next couple of days is trying to get to get Elijah Golden. So it really just comes down to, what your board is, close on it, finish on it, and that's the key. And the staff is hoping to be pretty much done with recruiting by the time the season starts. I mean, that's that with 26 class, that's the goal, and there's a shot that they could. And boy, this class it's really humming, boys. It's really humming.
Yo, that was a really good tab with the Cam Hart connection. Both Maryland kids, Baltimore kids. That was a good comp. Darn good comp.
Yeah, just real similar body types. Cam was real raw. I think Cam was more of a receiver at the time than he was a DB, where Kari is more of a DB than he is a receiver. But if Kari was like, hey, I want to play receiver, would you still recruit him in Notre Dame? I'd be like, yeah. He's got a lot to learn, but yeah, he's 6'2", he's fast, he catches the ball well, he's You know, he can make plays after the catch. Sure, I'd recruit him there. And that's, you know, Cam was that way too. But Joey O'Brien's that way. If Joey O'Brien called the coaches tomorrow and was like, hey, you know what? I want to play receiver, I'd be like, all right, cool. Let's do it. So, but yeah, that's why it's not just, it's the Maryland thing. It's the body type. It's the frame. There's just a lot of things. I'll say this. I think Kari's a little bit smoother than Cam was. Cam is a little bit stronger, but I think Kari's a little bit more fluid. His hips are he's just a little cleaner with the transitions, just a little bit more of a natural corner athlete than even Cam was. And Vince is up there like, you shut your mouth blaspheming Cam Hart like that. Vince is like going to not want to hang out with me at all like this weekend after saying something even remotely negative about Cam Hart. But Cam was an exceptional player. It's just a slight difference. But man, it's a talented player. And I'd love to get more kids from that area. Part of it's because they all play each other. So these kids are all like kind of battle tested. That's why Bama goes up there and gets so many kids. Remember Bama got that Terrell Hall kid a few years ago. They ended up having a lot of injuries, but man, he was super talented. So it's a very underrated area, and I've always wondered, why doesn't Notre Dame do better here? I don't know that this commitment is going to change any of that, but it doesn't hurt. Certainly doesn't hurt.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for our commitment show of Kari Adams, a corner from Maryland. And this is an exciting one. And this is one that the staff was excited about. And he didn't set this as a date. And he just said, look, it's time. I'm committing. And we're here to give a show for it. So very excited. Again, it's the second domino to fall from this past weekend's recruiting visits. And who knows which dominoes are next. And but you got to stay locked in to Irish Breakdown if you want to know which domino comes next. And if you want an analysis of that domino. All right. So you're going to have to hit the like button, the subscribe button, the notification bell. You can share with your family and friends, specifically your Penn State friends. Make sure they're aware of everything that's going on right now because Irish Breakdown will have it for you. So make sure you share it with everybody because that's what we're here for. All right. You definitely want to check out the boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com for all the intel. And I know your Penn State friends will enjoy that as well. So make sure you stay locked in with us because this is where it's at, folks. And we'll keep bringing the heat over here at Irish Breakdown.
Now, is this where you want me and Sean to leave so you guys can get back to the mailbag?
We're going to continue the mailbag.
Now that we've interrupted you,
stick around.
Is it time for you guys to boot us out? Like, hey, y'all don't have to go home, but you got to get the heck out of here. Is that pretty much what you're telling us now, Vince?
I mean, you do what you got to do.
Okay, Sean, it's been a pleasure, my friend. Vince wants us to go so they get back to the mailbag. So appreciate you guys.
Bad.
Hey, have a fun show, everybody, and I'll see y'all tonight.
See ya. All right, Trevor, let's jump right back into the mailbag. Obviously, we had a lot of fun there with the commitment of Kari Adams and what that means for Notre Dame. And so we're going to try to get back at it here with the mailbag. And so I hope everybody sticks around. We've got a ton of questions in the queue, and we'll try to get to absolutely as many as we possibly can. Trevor, I mean, I'm ready to answer some questions. I don't know about you.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a better way to get us kicked back off than with some super chats, man. So
let's do it. I love it.
Right back in.
Chief Brody, thanks for the super chat. Franklin Attitude about to make PA an ND pipeline. Look, Pennsylvania was a pipeline for Notre Dame in the past. I mean, they got a lot of good players out of Pennsylvania, and I feel like it has kind of wavered a little bit. But there's been a lot of head-to-heads here against Penn State recently, and Penn State has not exactly come out on top, and I'm frankly okay with it.
Heard that. Got another super chat in here from our guy, Kevin O'Neill.
Oh, Kevin O'Neill, thanks for the super chat, man. Really appreciate you very, very much. Do NIL contracts at Notre Dame include stipulations outlining minimum classroom attendance and performance? Also, Notre Dame has historically demanded on-campus residential dorm living, at least for the freshmen. Is this still the case?
Vince, I'm going to kind of kick this one back to you because I just don't know. I don't know how much NIL contracts outline academic performance, especially the way it's being handled now. At Notre Dame specifically, I have no idea. Kevin, I'm sorry. I appreciate your super chat, man. I just don't have a definitive answer for you. I do know at a lot of schools, Typically, you have to live on campus in dorms your freshman season. Now, mind you, I did not attend an institution that came anywhere close to Notre Dame, nor was I a high-rated caliber high school recruit going to play football somewhere either at a place like Notre Dame. So it could be different, but I have no idea.
I believe they still have to live on campus as freshmen. I don't know that for fact. I know some kids that went from Penn to Notre Dame. They're living on campus this year in other sports. I believe that they live on campus their first year. I think after the first year, then they are allowed to move off. I think that has loosened up a little bit. I think it used to be you had to wait until after your sophomore year. I think that they can move off campus after their freshman year now. With everything with NIL and the money and all of that, maybe they don't have to live on campus anymore. Maybe that's a thing now, but I don't see Notre Dame shying away from that because that is kind of a tradition-rich situation that takes place. So I do think they still have to live on campus at least for freshman year. I could be wrong. So if there's a student that's in the chat or a parent of a student that's in the chat, feel free to jump in on that. But I'm pretty sure they still have to. As far as NIL contracts, I've never seen an NIL contract in my life. I don't know what they entail. I have no clue. My guess is they do not have stipulations for attendance and performance because NIL contracts are usually with companies. And Gates Chevy World doesn't care if you go to class. You know what I mean? Like that. That's where I'm at with that. I think Notre Dame, the football program, cares if you go to class, and there are stipulations within that. But I don't believe there's NIL. Now, once they start doing revenue sharing and things like that, since that's coming from the university, maybe there will be some sort of a stipulation that when it comes to class and performance and attendance and all that kind of stuff. But I would say that the NIL contracts specifically do not, because they don't really have anything to do with Notre Dame. Now, Notre Dame will line those up and they'll hook guys up with different companies and things like that. But the actual contract is with the companies, I believe. And I believe Notre Dame does it that way. So, but great question, Kevin. I think this is a whole brave new world, man, with what we're in with contracts and NILs and letters of intent and, all of those different things. What I can tell you is the letter of intent that my son signed didn't have anything to do with going to class or anything like that. It didn't say that specifically, but it did say if he didn't do well his second semester of his senior year in high school, they were going to cancel it. So there's that. That was in there. So I made sure I highlighted that one and pointed it out to my kid. Not that was a problem, but it's like, dude, right here, like it ain't over.
I'm sure Dylan probably also has a separate D'Addario contract if you better go to class and you better do well in school that is signed in very bold print at the bottom of the contract. So.
That is right. That is a verbal contract that can turn physical if necessary. So,
oh, that's good. I'll say this, Kevin. I am going to be interested to see what happens when the revenue share comes out. I wonder if there's going to be some, because you have to be academically eligible to play football anyways in the NCAA. I wonder if there's going to be something outlined in there about maintaining a certain level of GPA, especially now that tens of thousands of dollars is going to be involved in you being a part of the football program. Right. So that's something that I would keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Jacob Sweat, if you had to have a choice of choosing a coach in a big game, which one would you choose? Lincoln Riley, Mario Cristobal, or James Franklin?
Fold.
Yeah. No, right? Pass.
Oh, gosh. Oh, boy.
It's okay. It's definitely not James Franklin, so we can just eliminate him from the list. I don't know that I know enough about Mario Cristobal to bag on him enough in like big game situations. Lincoln Riley won some big games down in Oklahoma. You can say that they weren't his players and you can, all of those different things, and that's fine. And I don't have a problem with you saying that, but he did coach the game. So I guess if you're twisting my arm, I'll take Lincoln Riley on this one. He does do a good job with quarterbacks as well. So his relationship with the quarterback is key in this one. So I'll take Lincoln Riley.
I'm also going Lincoln Riley as well. One, he is still a hell of a play caller. I mean, offensively, the team will compete offensively. And if we are drawing this back to Notre Dame, there have been moments in the past where in big games, Notre Dame's offense is a little dormant. at least I don't know if a Lincoln Riley led team is going to win the game, but at least offensively they're going to put up some numbers. Defensively, they will also put up some numbers, but not in their favor. So I'll probably go Lincoln Riley there. But going back and thinking about him as a head coach in big games, I mean, I think about the Rose Bowl in 2017 between Georgia. I think of a lot of the Red River shootouts that he has been in with Texas. So I'd probably go Lincoln Riley on that one.
Yeah.
Here's one about Notre Dame's schedule.
Oh, okay. Corey Norman, biggest mismatch in Notre Dame's favor for the first game versus Miami.
I'm going to go Notre Dame's DBs over Miami's wide receivers. I mean, you go and you look back at some of the production that they have returning. I'm talking about Miami's. And it's just, as of right now, it is very, very much a mismatch. I mean, they have CJ Daniels, who transferred in from LSU. He was great at Liberty, but once he got up to the P4 level last season, he had 42 receptions, 480 yards, no touchdowns. Josiah Trader is going to be in their receiving core. He has 6 receptions, 91 yards, 1 touchdown. But again, I've been very bullish on saying that I believe Notre Dame has the number 1 secondary in college football. When you're talking about a combination of Leonard Moore, Christian Gray, Adon Schuler, and one of Luke Talich, Jadon Blair, Bronte Johnson, Jalen Stroman, Carson Hobbs could rotate in. You got Devontae Smith in the nickel. I would say, all things considered, that's probably the biggest direct mismatch. Notre Dame's receiver or Miami's receivers versus Notre Dame's secondary. Now, indirect mismatch, I also think that Notre Dame's running back room holds a severe advantage over Miami's running back room. And that's not even a slight to Miami. I like the running backs that they have. I mean, they have Mark Fletcher. They have Jordan Lyle. Last season, they combined for 1,007 yards, and they combined for 13 rushing touchdowns. That's good production. But that's still, 4 rushing touchdowns and over 100 yards south of what just Jeremiah Love did last season. And so when I'm weighing my options between the two, as far as an indirect matchup goes, I would say the running back rooms. I think Notre Dame's running backs will take the day. But as far as direct matchups, I would go Miami's receivers and Notre Dame's defensive backs. What about you, Vince?
No, I love it. That's a good. I was going to go running backs because no matter who Notre Dame's playing, I'm always going to take Notre Dame's running backs. So that was going to be like my ace in the hole. So I'm with you. I think Notre Dame's secondary and Notre Dame's running backs are going to be superior probably to most teams that they play, if not all. And I'll say all just to do it. But yeah, that's solid on your part.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem. Mark Avalone, for Notre Dame specifically, and perhaps other big-time programs, how many years will boosters support big NIL money if a national championship is not achieved?
This is where I need to educate myself a little bit more, because I don't know if you're talking more like NIL collectives, because I think those are going to start going away once the revenue share model. Because it's not going to be so much like boosters just go and feed into a gigantic NIL pool and the team could just distribute that as much as possible. Ideally, I think that NIL is going to go back to what it was originally intended for. And I've used this analogy a bunch, but it's the same thing of how salespeople get compensated. The revenue share model, that's going to be your base salary. No matter if you're the starting quarterback for 2 seasons at the school, at the University of Notre Dame, or you are a 4th string cornerback, you make the same level of money at the base. But the NIL is what sets you over the top, makes you a top level earner per se. And so I think that's how much it would be. Now, I don't know how much boosters would feed into that.
Yeah, because they're going to be like business owners that are getting into contracts with the players. Like, that's what NIL, they're trying to put some guardrails up. Like, they're attempting to do that, right? So there's going to be like the commission that has to like approve NIL deals and things like that. And, what is that going to look like? I think that still remains to be seen. But they're trying to make NIL an actual thing, like a legitimate thing. And so are boosters, like I said, and I just pulled like a random car dealer. So like Gates Chevy World, if they're a Notre Dame booster, locally, are they going to pump money and into the program? Meaning, are they going to hire guys to talk about their cars or to drive their cars and talk about them and, things of that nature? Are they going to continue to do that if there's no national championship? I think the answer is yes, because they're still going to get benefit from that relationship, regardless of whether there's a national championship or not. Look, people around here use Notre Dame all the time in advertising, and that is exactly what NIL is supposed to be. That's not going to stop. I mean, they haven't gotten a national championship since 1988, right? There's still plenty of people that are using Notre Dame from an advertising standpoint, right? I mean, I think AT&T, uses Notre Dame, like all these different companies, AT&T Wireless, like things like that. Well, there was no wireless in 88, and somehow they seem to think that Notre Dame's going to help them without winning a national championship. So that's still going to happen. And then when you see all of those companies that sponsor Notre Dame football, a lot of that, there are arms to those companies that are paying the students to do certain things NIL wise, whether it's coming in and working internships, or whether it's helping them with advertising, or whatever the case may be. They're all feeding into this. And so I think you're going to see less NIL like collective support, but more actual NIL contracts going down, like the signing at Dick's Sporting Goods, that people talk about, that kind of stuff. I think that's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shaquille Oatmeal, one of my favorite names. Mailbag for real. I read on the board that schools are heavily negatively recruiting Notre Dame, maybe more so than usual. Are you able to share what other schools are pitching against Notre Dame?
I mean, it's a lot of just it's the same stuff.
Yep.
Right. It's a lot of it's too far. They haven't won a championship since 1988. It's cold. It's,
you actually have to go to class.
Yeah. The academic standards are really high. I don't really think it's tough, because a lot of Notre Dame's like financials and stuff like that, like NIL evaluations, things like that aren't public knowledge. So you could use that, but I mean, I'm sure numbers are being disclosed on visits and private conversations, things like that. So, but I'm sure schools attempt it. Well, I know Notre Dame can't offer you what we can offer you, type of thing. So really, to answer your question, Shaquille, it's anything under the sun that they can. I said this on the show the other day. Once schools start using negative recruiting tactics, that shows me that school is behind. Because if you are good at your job as a recruiter, you should be able to rely on what your school offers, not trying to downplay what another school can or can't offer. Prime example is what we just got done talking about with Mike Mickens and the recruitment of Kari Adams, who just committed to Notre Dame. And by the way, for anybody that is new, just now hopping into the show, we did cover that recruitment. I know it's big news. We'll be covering that. You see it scrolling down there, boards.irishbreakdown.com. We will be covering that, of course, on the premium message boards as well. But when I look at it, when a school has to resort to negatively recruiting another school, take Notre Dame out of it, they know that they're behind in the race. If you're confident in the product that you're selling, leave the decision up to the kid. And that's something that Mike Mickens has done a fantastic job of.
Yep, absolutely.
All righty. Let's see what we got here.
Domer Grizz, happy Friday. Happy Friday to you, Domer Grizz. What does Notre Dame need to do to keep Mickens on staff for the foreseeable future? He's absolutely vital to our ongoing success.
Hand him a blank checkbook and a pen.
Right?
In all seriousness, you got to do what you can to keep him happy. I mean, he is on an absolute different level recruiting right now. And it doesn't just end there. It's also recruiting and attracting and retaining and developing that talent that he is bringing into South Bend. Simple answer, do what you got to do to keep him happy.
100%. Whether that's title, whether he's the next man in line for defensive coordinator, whether it's a paycheck, whether it's, I don't know. I don't know what's important to Mike Mickens. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Is it a paycheck? Is it a title? Is it, trying to be a head coach someday? Is it being a coordinator? I don't know the answer to any of that. Whatever it is, Notre Dame needs to do it. Like that's where they're at, within reason, of course, right?
Sure.
I mean, he doesn't need to be making more than Marcus Freeman, right? And he doesn't need to be making more than either one of the coordinators, because he's not a coordinator, right? But if that's what he wants to do, then you lay out some guidelines as to what it looks like and what that path could be. Whatever they're doing it, and he's still here. So I don't really have an issue with that. And I'm sure Marcus Freeman knows exactly what he needs to do to keep Mike Mickens happy. and keep him on staff. And these recruiting wins aren't hurting any either. Just saying.
No, not at all.
Just saying. John A1, using current and former Notre Dame players. Oh, boy, here we go. Contract the ultimate running offensive line and backfield to face the ultimate run-stopping defensive front seven. I'm terrible at this kind of stuff because it involves my memory.
Running offensive line. Okay. I would go, and I want to hear some people's in the chats about this too.
Yeah.
Let's go. Oh, boy. I mean, Quentin Nelson at left guard. I think that's probably the most obvious one. At center, give me Sam Mustipher from 2017. Let's see. I'm trying to think of good run blocking tackles. You know what I mean? If I can move them from positions they didn't play well at Notre Dame, if that's okay, John, I'm going to put Zach Martin at right guard, the position that he took off in the NFL and became one of the most prolific guards of this, last couple decades here. So I'd go Quentin Nelson left guard, Sam Mustipher in 2017 at center from his performance that year at Notre Dame. I'd go Zach Martin at right guard, right tackle. I mean, a lot of Notre Dame's tackles have been really good in pass protection. You know what I mean? But as run blockers, screw it. We'll go Joe Alt left tackle, and I'll go Ronnie Stanley at right tackle because he started there in 2013. How about that?
Love it.
And then running back, maybe it's recency bias. I'll just say Jeremiah Love.
Yeah, I'm good with that too. I mean, yeah, 100%. I like it. Audric Estime, maybe, if you want to go with a 1-2 punch, just because he can go up the middle and just take people's souls. So I'd be okay with that as well. But I also want somebody that's going to be able to get around the edge and jumps over somebody. So I like Jeremiah Love back there. So I'm running two running backs in that case. And I don't care who the quarterback is. Trevor, you're my quarterback because I know you can hand off. So we're good.
At a high level, buddy. Let me tell you, John A1 did put his in the chat. He said Mike McGlinchey at left tackle, Quentin Nelson left guard, Jarrett Patterson center, Aaron Banks right guard, Blake Fisher right tackle. I don't mind that. It's a good list.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's not a bad list at all.
That is a good list. All righty, here we go.
From Muhammad Abdi. Brian, did you listen to Freeman's interview with Klatt? It seems he wants to win by stopping the run and running the ball, not throwing 30 times a game. I know you said it doesn't win championships. Marcus Freeman's been pretty consistent since he took over that this is how he wants to build his team, right, Trevor?
Yeah, I mean, look, I didn't take it that way. This is just a core value of his team. Like at its fundamental level, he wants to be able to run the ball and stop the run. Right. Those are two crucial aspects. And look, you go back through and you look at the teams that have won the national championship post 2020 Bama when they just had Devontae Smith, who went on a generational tear in that season. All of those teams, Georgia in 21 and 22, Michigan in 23, and Ohio State last season could stop the ball or could stop the run and run the ball. And that doesn't mean, I think a lot of fans, they only see it in one of two ways. And I understand where you're coming from because when your head coach is on national TV talking about how you got to run the ball and you got to stop the run, it's easy to think, okay, well, that's all they're going to do.
Right.
Marcus Freeman knows that they have to be more dangerous vertically down the field. But at its fundamental level, they have to be able to stop the run and run the football. Prime example is Penn State in the first half versus the second half. They could not stop Penn State on the ground in the first half. They also could not establish a line of scrimmage in the first half. What did they do that first drive on offense and defense of the second half against Penn State? They ran the ball and stopped the run. Mm-hmm. But what won them that game? Pushing the ball down the field to Jaden Greathouse. Riley Leonard opening up the passing attack. What brought Notre Dame back in the national championship? Opening up the offense and pushing the ball vertically down the field. So, Muhammad, you're not misplaced in hearing what Marcus Freeman is talking about. It's just, it's the fundamental level. It's not, you have to run the ball and stop the run, and then that's it. That's the only thing that they have to do because they still have to cover on defense at an elite level. They still have to be able to push the ball vertically down the field at an elite level if they want to get over that final hump and win a national championship.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. I think at a fundamental level, that's who Marcus Freeman wants to be, because he wants to take your soul. Like that's what Marcus Freeman wants to do. Like that's how you win football games. You know what I mean? And is he going to be afraid to throw the football? No, not at all. And especially with the guys that he's got to choose from at quarterback, he's not going to be afraid to throw the football, and he's going to let Coach Denbrock do his thing when it comes to offense. I don't think he's going to interfere, kind of how he did early on in his career, with what he wants the offense to be. What he wants this offense to do is score. Okay. Now, he always wants to be able to fall back on the fact that they can run the football, and he wants to fall back on the fact that they can stop the run, because he has a lot of confidence in his secondary. They're going to be able to stop the pass. You know what I mean? So as long as they're scoring points and not letting the other team score more points, he's going to be happy. But this is the fundamental way he wants to build his football team. And I don't have a problem with that, because you put a good offensive line together with a good running game, then you now pair that with a really good quarterback. Now the sky's the limit now offensively and what you can do. So I have no problem with that whatsoever.
100%. Vince, you brought up a really good point around who they have at quarterback this season. If Marcus Freeman just wanted to be a running football team, they would have brought in John Mateer from Washington State, a dual threat guy that's now at Oklahoma. You go and you look at those pieces. Look, Muhammad, this puts Notre Dame in a spot where if they're able to establish the run and stop the run on defense, but also be able to cover at an elite level, because they have Leonard Moore, they have Christian Gray, they have Adon Schuler, they have Malachi Fields and Jaden Greathouse and Eli Raridan and Jordan Faison and Will Pauling. That starts to put you in the conversation of how do you stop this team? Can't run on them. Can't throw on them. You can't stop their rushing attack, and now they can hurt you over the top. That's what he's striving for. But that foundation, he would rather begin by establishing the line of scrimmage than lead with the pass. And I personally don't have an issue with it. That'd be similar to my coaching philosophy if I were a head coach as well. Because at the end of games, that's how you grind out games. That's how you win it. That's how they grinded out the clock against Georgia in that second half. And so that's where I'm at with that one. Here's a non-football.
Ooh, I like non-football questions. Oh boy, this is from PQ. What did it do? Start, bench, cut, pancakes, waffles, French toast. You want to take a stab at this one first? I can nail this one for you.
Well, I want to hear yours, because I've answered this before, but I want to know where you're.
Oh, have you really? Okay. So for me, I'm just not a huge fan of waffles. Waffles is my cut. There's no question about it. Now, depending on my mood between pancakes and French toast, would decide who I'm going to start and cut. But I would say more often than not, I'm going to start pancakes and I'm going to bench French toast. And here's the reason why. To me, the way I'm weird, because I'm usually, cooking the pancakes and stuff like that. So like, I don't really get a chance to like sit down and like, smother it with syrup and, the whole thing. I'm taking my pancakes, I'm rolling them, and I'm just eating them, just getting after it. And so it's just ease. It's ease of consumption for me. So that's why I'm putting pancakes as the start. I'm putting French toast as the bench, because I'll bring them on. I'll bring them in the game. I will bring French toast in the game, especially a good stuffed French toast. Let's go. But waffles are an easy cut for me.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you are with pancakes. I am 100% starting pancakes. Lauren makes phenomenal buttermilk pancakes, and she swore up and down when we were dating in college. She swore up and down. She was like, "You haven't had good pancakes until like it was like her mom's recipe and all this other stuff." And I was like, I guess pancakes are just kind of pancakes. Right. And she made them and literally made me eat my words, because they're fantastic. I crave them all the time. But
a good fluffy pancake, man.
It's so good, man. It's so good. And then I'm going to I'm gonna bench waffles and cut French toast. And that's what I said last time. I'll stick true to it. I got some flack for it. And it's not that I don't like French toast, but I'm also I love waffles and peanut butter. Like waffles, peanut butter, and then you put a little bit of maple syrup on top of it. Yeah, dog. That's the way to go. But I do also still like French. We're talking about what am I start benching and cutting amongst 3 breakfast foods that I love.
I love breakfast is my favorite meal of the day. When it's done right.
Look at me, dude. I don't not like French toast. like this isn't like, come on, man. I'm not starting my day with avocado toast and like a smoothie. Obviously, I love French toast,
No.
but if it was laid out in front of me in a breakfast buffet, that would be the order that I would eat them. But I would still eat all of them.
It's fair. No, me too. And here's what I'm most excited about. So for Father's Day, I got a new Blackstone griddle.
Come on now.
Yeah, got rid of my grill, and now I've replaced it with a griddle. So I'm excited about that first morning pancake griddle out on the deck situation, which hopefully is not too far off into the distant future. So I'm pretty fired up about it, actually. I want to see what the griddle can do for me.
I might have to make it up to your place and join the D'Addario clan for Father's Day breakfast.
Let's go.
Got one in here from our resident Ohio State fan in the chat, Archer.
Okay, Archer, if Notre Dame had one protected rivalry game from each conference, who would you want those teams to be? Oh, this is a good one.
It's a great question, Archer. I'm going to answer this in the lens of not the current super conferences, because then that makes I'm able to hit all the different ones.
Yeah. Okay. So in other words, you don't want USC to be in the Big Ten, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah. Yep. Pac-12. I'm going USC for the most obvious reasons. Big Ten, I'm going Michigan. I know there's a lot of debate there. I just don't like them, and when there's a program that I don't like, I want to beat them on the field where it counts. That's where I'm at with it. I know there's others that might float out there, but mine's Michigan.
Okay.
ACC. I'm going to stick with Clemson.
Yep.
I know I know there's some people that might still say Miami, but I didn't grow up in the day seeing some of those big time matchups. Every single time I've watched a Notre Dame Miami game outside of the 2016 season when Notre Dame was they've been blowouts on either side, have not been close games. And so I'm going to go Clemson. In the SEC,
this is harder because there's no clear cut. There's just no clear cut rival in the SEC.
That's what I'm saying.
And I don't know that there's anybody that I would want to play every single year in the SEC, to be honest with you.
LSU. No, just now that Brian Kelly's there.
You got some serious Brian Kelly hatred, and I am here for it.
I do, bro.
I'm here for it.
I so do.
I'm here for it. I'm okay with it.
All righty.
So if you had to put USC in the Big Ten, who are you picking then?
If I had to, I'm sorry, say that again.
If USC, if the current conferences, so basically you got to choose between USC and Michigan, who are you picking?
USC.
Okay.
Yeah, for more historic purposes, and they've had better. I guess not recently. They've had more high impactful games than what Michigan had been. Like Michigan had some great games along with it, but like USC, it always seems like whenever Notre Dame is in playoff contention and has a chance to make a postseason run, they have to end it in the Coliseum.
I know, every time.
2012, 2018, this past season. So I would still go USC for that one.
Yeah, me too. And I would reluctantly probably choose Michigan in the Big Ten if they were separated, because nobody's going to get excited about Michigan State. Nobody's going to get excited about Purdue. Maybe now people get excited about Penn State, but I wouldn't want to give Penn State the benefit of the doubt that we play them every year and bring them revenue. So I would not want to do that. So it would probably by default be Michigan. There would probably be a lot of people that would want Ohio State based on recent history, and I would understand that as well. But I would probably still go with Michigan. The LSU, I get that one. I don't know. Nobody in the no one in the SEC gets me fired up to play them every single year.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? Like, I would love to have some sort of a rotation going in the SEC because I would love to play kind of like they're doing in Alabama, a Texas, a Georgia, whatever the case may be. But if you're putting the proverbial gun to my head, I would probably pick LSU because I think that would be a game that Notre Dame could win more often than not. So I'd be okay with that too.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Did we do the Big 12?
Oh, gosh, no. Whoops.
I don't know if there's anybody that really stands out in the Big 12, although I would love to beat the brains of Colorado in every now and again. Wouldn't mind that. But that's not a rivalry. You know what I mean? Like late 80s, early 90s maybe, but not overall.
Yeah, Big 12 I got. I got nothing. Maybe if it's the old Big 12, maybe like Texas, I guess, but I don't
Yeah.
know what. I view the
Right.
Big 12 similar to the SEC. Like there's not a
Yeah.
school in there that I would pound my fist on the table and say, no,
Right.
we have to play them
Right.
every year.
Sean Stiers would want Kansas because that's where he went to school, you know, that kind of thing. But
Okay.
I just don't have a whole lot of dog in the fight when it comes to the Big 12 either. So anyway, just figured I'd throw it out there. All right. From the history expert, would Tom Zbikowski have been a more complete safety if he had played in Al Golden's defense?
I do not think so. I think he would have been used very similar to how Drew Tranquil was in Mike Elko's defense. I think they would have played him
Down the
more around the
box.
line of scrimmage.
I agree.
You know, I love Zibby as a player. He was one of my first favorite players when I watched Notre Dame. Like he was the hard hitting safety, punt returner, had the mohawk.
Yep.
You know, I love Tom Zibby. He was the first Notre Dame jersey that I had. You know, those old school Adidas ones. I had a blue or a green number 9 one. I mean,
Nice with the gold numbers.
Yeah.
But by the way, those are my favorite gold or green jerseys. Just gonna throw it out there.
I do love those jerseys.
Yeah, but anyway,
I do love those jerseys. But yeah, to answer your question, history expert, I don't even know if he would have been a full-time safety. They might have just asked him to play a little bit more nickel because he was such a hard-hitting type of safety. I think they would have used him very similar to how they used Thomas Harper. Just have him blitz off the edge, play around the line of scrimmage, limit the times that he's out in coverage. But yeah, that's probably where I would line up Zibby. What about you, Vince?
yeah, I like the Drew Tranquil comp. I think that he belonged more in the box than he did back at safety. He wasn't great at tracking the ball, and his instincts weren't great in the backfield. He was great at returning punts. You know, he was great at doing a lot of things, but he just wasn't great in pass coverage. He just wasn't, right? And so I would be all about bringing him down in the box, and I think he could have done that in Al Golden's defense. And so that's what so would he have been a better safety? No, but I think he could have been a better defensive player, though.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Does that count, history
Mhm.
expert? Like, I feel like he would have been better off doing that, and then maybe it would change his trajectory in the NFL too. You know what I mean? Because when Drew Tranquil came to Notre Dame, nobody thought that he was going to be a linebacker in the NFL. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. I could definitely do with some more Tom Zbikowski in my life as far as being a Notre Dame fan, though.
I'm with you.
Hunter Hall, recently Greg McElroy has Notre Dame's offensive line number 1 and has A&M and Miami both in the top 10. Opinions on how our D-line will hold up and how y'all feel about the rankings.
Yeah, I like the rankings. I mentioned this yesterday, there is a lot of good returning offensive lines in college football this upcoming season. A lot of them. And A&M and Miami are absolutely in that conversation. Clemson is also in that conversation. Penn State is in that conversation. You know, Utah's in that conversation. I mean, but just between Texas A&M and Miami, I mean, A&M, they have 120 career starts combined coming back to their starting offensive line in 2025. Played over 3,620 snaps last season. You know, it's a really good tackle duo. We mentioned that yesterday when we were talking about the defensive end position is Notre Dame's DNs are going to be tested very early because in back-to-back games, they face Trey Zune and Demetrius Crownover at Texas A&M. Then they, you know, the game before, they play Francis Maino and Markel Bell, who is a massive person at Miami to start off the season. And so, yeah, I mean, I liked his rankings. There is a lot of different ones to choose from. We're actually going to be putting out our top 10 unit rankings, similar to what we did with the quarterbacks yesterday. We're going to be doing that for the offensive line later this summer as well, but they're 100% in the conversation. Opinions on how Notre Dame's defensive line will hold up against them right now. I mean, I'm optimistic, but I'm cautiously optimistic because these are very proven offensive lines that they will be going against. I know next week we're going to break down the defensive tackles at Notre Dame, but if I can just be honest with you, it's somewhat of an incomplete right now. I think the battle in the trenches is ultimately what's going to decide those two games. And Notre Dame's offensive line being number 1, I love, despite their numbers not being as gaudy as what A&M's are, or Clemson's, or Miami's. I mean, they have 54 career starts combined to Miami's who have 86 and Texas A&M who have 120. But their ceiling is extremely, extremely high. So right now, I can't give you a good answer on the defensive line. It's kind of been incomplete for me. But I'll say this. Do I think that Notre Dame's defensive line is going to absolutely dominate A&M's and Miami's offensive line? I don't. Do I think that A&M and Miami's offensive line will absolutely dominate Notre Dame's defensive line? No, I do not. And if you made me choose one or the other, I'd be leaning more towards the first option, but it's going to be a tight battle down in the trenches. That's for sure.
Love it. Couldn't have said it better myself. Love it. I'm with you. Tommy Guns, is Mickens the highest paid non-coordinator assistant? If not, he absolutely should be.
I don't think they make their salaries.
No, I have no
public.
idea. I have no idea.
I mean, after this run, I don't know how he's not.
I mean, yeah, he's absolutely earning his keep. I don't know of any of the assistants on the staff that I would voluntarily pay more than Mike Mickens, as I'm looking at the staff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would assume yes, I guess is the best way to put it. I would assume yes. Johnny one, what's the difference between being a physical team and being a dirty team?
I mean, not for the sake of sounding too like I don't want to give too much of a simplistic answer here, but a lot of physical teams just play correctly in between the whistles.
Correct.
You know, I mean, it is absolutely possible to be one, not the other on both sides of the coin. And it's also possible to be both. I mean, once you cross the threshold to being a dirty team, that strikes me as undisciplined.
Mm-hmm.
You should absolutely want to take the will of somebody who plays the game across from you in between the whistles. But once that whistle blows, you guys are players who are making a conservative effort to perform at a very high level on the same stage. You shouldn't want to do anything to hurt anybody's chances moving forward. That's what I view as a dirty team. Physical teams, they're dominant in the trenches. They're willing to get pushes on offensive and defensive lines. They make good, hard, fundamental tackles. Dirty teams are the ones where, you know, they're consistently going low and on tackles. And when I mean going low, I don't mean like good form tackles, wrapping up the legs. I mean like trying to put helmets to kneecaps, that type of deal. It's extracurriculars on the sidelines. They're consistently late hitting out of bounds. So there is a threshold that you can cross. I'm all down for a big hit, like what Luke Talich did to that poor Penn State kid that I don't know if he wants to return punts anymore in the Orange Bowl.
A perfect form tackle, though, too.
Textbook, very physical. Where that would have been dirty is if he would have tried to fair catch it beforehand.
Right.
You know? So that's where I draw the line between physical and being a dirty team.
Yep. Yeah. Like somebody said in the chat, extracurriculars in the pile and, you know, things like that. Anything that's beyond the scope of between the whistles. Like, I'm actually cool with playing to the echo of the whistle, like that kind of stuff, as long as you're playing football and it's not the dirty hits. It's the, you know, that kind of stuff. It's not pulling face masks and jerseys and body parts and things like that. You know what I mean? So yeah, I agree. There's a definite line between the two, and I absolutely fall on the side of being a physical team. That's what I've always wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Garcia, what similarities do you think that Marcus Freeman has with Lou Holtz?
Well, for starters, they're both head coaches at the University of Notre Dame. Sorry.
No, that's a good one.
Sorry.
Clearly.
It's Friday. I'm kind of being a smart aleck. But no, this one I'm going to kind of lean more on Vince because you guys know me. I wasn't exposed to Lou Holtz in his prime.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is they're both leaders of men. They both know how to get 18 to 22-year-olds motivated to play a college football game. That's what it is. And not everybody has that. Not every coach has that. Not every head coach at Notre Dame has had that. They were both players, coaches. Now Lou wasn't going to take any crap for anybody, and neither is Marcus Freeman. And the definition of a player's coach is different in 1988 than it is in 2025 too. But they're both players, coaches. They both know how to get Team's motivated. You know, I think they both have absolute, best intentions for their teams and always think player first. I think those are the biggest qualities. Like, you can't even go down the road of like X's and O's and things like that because the game is just so different than it was back in 1988 than it is now. I mean, that was so long ago. You know what I mean? So as far as like an X's and O's coach and things like that, like you couldn't even run practice the same way now that you did back then. You know what I mean? Like even when I was in high school, they were running practices different than they do now. And that was 15 years, 10 to 15 years after what Lou Holtz was doing. So, there's no more 2-a-days. There's no more 3-a-days. There's no, it's just different. Like in Indiana, you can't even, in high school, you can't even hit in 2 consecutive practices, like you can't even be fully padded in 2 consecutive practices during August.
Wait,
so
really?
Things have changed. Yes. Yeah. You can't be full pads. There has to be a non-padded practice or a shell practice. Yeah. So and you can't do 2-a-days back to back anymore. So like on Monday you have a 1-a-day, right? And then on Tuesday you have 2, but if you have pads on the first practice, you can't have them on the second practice. And it has to be like it's wild, dude. I mean,
that's changed even since I was in high school.
Yes. Correct. 100%. It's ridiculous.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I mean, we had back-to-back padded practices every week. I'd like to sit here and tell you that it worked, but I mean, we still did it. I mean, goodness
Things
gracious.
have changed drastically from when I started coaching until now. And drastically, right? And I started coaching like 18 years ago, and things have changed drastically. And then they've changed even more drastically from the time that I played until now. But yeah, it's nuts.
That is crazy. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, man. It's crazy.
Goodness.
It's crazy. Connor, my man, what's going on, dude? He says, what is it that makes Notre Dame's post-2016 defense so consistent, even as players and coaches come and go?
I mean, well, for starters, they're attracting talent at a much higher level. The defensive coordinator hires post-2016 have been fantastic. You go from Mike Elko to Clark Lee to Marcus Freeman to Al Golden. And right now, Chris Ash just has an incomplete grade.
Right. Agreed.
But I've said this all offseason. Look, he would, with the talent that's on this roster and who the head coach is, he would have to purposely call the wrong plays for Notre Dame's defense to be 2016 bad. Like he would have to purposely line up in goal line formation on 1st and 10 from the opponent's 25 for it to not be good. And so I think who they have driving the bus on the defensive side of the ball plays a huge, huge factor in that. And their talent acquisition has gotten significantly better post 2016. Not that it was bad before, but now there's more. The talent is more diverse throughout the defense because, in 2015, hey, you got Jalen Smith, then you got Joe Schmidt, high IQ guy, try hard, high motor, but limited athletically, and then, you've even seen it in other seasons. But first and foremost, it's the coordinators, and then it's also the talent around it, especially since Marcus Freeman took over, has taken that next jump. That's for sure.
Completely agree. It starts with the coordinators and it starts with the talent acquisition. I mean, bottom line, they've had excellent coordinators. They haven't whiffed on a coordinator since 2016. So that's crucially important to having a good, consistent defense, and they haven't drastically changed scheme and, things like that. So the guys that they have recruited have fit into the scheme that they continue to use. So I think that's part of it as well. John A1, do you think Brennan Vernon has greater than 40% chance of breaking into the rotation in 2025?
As of today, on June 20th, I'll say no. I just want to see him get back to health. Be healthy. He put on a lot of weight from last season to this season, throughout the offseason. So get your body ready. He's still a relatively younger player. What he's going into his redshirt sophomore season, I believe. And so I would say that right now it's under a 40% chance. Would it shock me if when he returns healthy that he cracks the rotation? No, that wouldn't shock me at all. I mean, he's a 6'6", 290-pound defensive tackle. would not be surprised at all if he, or 285-pound defensive tackle. Wouldn't surprise me at all if he cracks the rotation, but you got to think of what's in front of him. Gabe Rubio, Donovan Heinisch, Jared Dawson, Jason Onye, Armel Mukum, Sean Sevillano's still healthy. He's another big body on the inside there. And so as of right now, I would say no, but would it shock me if he cracked the rotation in 2025? No, it wouldn't.
A. Reagan, who is the most explosive punt kick returner in the last decade? So we're going back to 2015 for most explosive.
Are we talking at Notre Dame, or I'm assuming?
Yes, I'm going to go yes.
CJ Sanders for me. Yeah, CJ Sanders was an electric special teams returner during his time at Notre Dame. Outside of that, the most explosive individual return was Jaden Harrison's, but he just didn't have a whole lot of opportunities in 2024. But I would say from a player standpoint, probably CJ Sanders in 15 and 16. What about you, Vince?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the various kick returners and stuff that Notre Dame has had. And obviously kick returning and punt returning are two completely, different scenarios. And I would say the first half of that decade that we're referring to here, they weren't trying to return punts, really, or kicks for that matter. You know what I mean? Like, I think Chris Tyree was a pretty explosive kick returner.
Yeah.
I would not mind having him back returning kicks. I think Jordan Faison has a great opportunity to be a great returner if they decide to put him back there returning punts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's no knock on anybody else that's been back there, but I think he has a nose for the end zone, and I think he might have an opportunity to make some noise in the punt return game as long as they allow him to do so. So I guess Chris Tyree would be my answer for kick return.
Don't hate that pick in the slightest.
Yeah, he's just so fast, man.
Yeah.
Just so fast.
His punt return against Pitt where he broke like 6 tackles.
Yeah. Right.
Electric.
Muhammad Abdi, why did Notre Dame produce very few first-round picks during the BK era and no first-round picks with Freeman? And who do you predict will be the first Freeman recruit to be picked in the first round?
Well, I don't know if that's completely true. Joe Alt was taken as like the number 5 or number 4 overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft. Now, if you're talking about like who brought him in, no, Marcus Freeman wasn't the head coach when Joe Alt came to South Bend. But, he was essentially the starting left tackle in all of 22 and all of 23 while Marcus Freeman was the head coach. So,
right.
But, for the Brian Kelly answer, some of it was lack of top-tier development, and then you just had some bad breaks with some kids. Jalen Smith was going to be a bona fide first-round pick if he didn't tear up his knee against Ohio State. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And he did have some. Zach Martin, Ronnie Stanley, a lot of offensive linemen.
A lot of offensive linemen, yeah.
A lot of offensive linemen. Kyle Hamilton was a first-round pick. Same conversation could be had around Harrison Smith. Brian Kelly didn't recruit him to Notre Dame, but Harrison Smith really took off under the Brian Kelly regime. He ended up being a first-round pick. But, look, it's just a patience thing with Marcus Freeman. Notre Dame last draft just had very few draft picks.
Yeah, a lot of those guys are back at school.
Yeah, they're just such a young team. So, at the end of the day, I'm not somebody that gets too hung up on, like, if they're going to be a high NFL draft pick or not. Alex Leatherwood was a high NFL draft pick for Alabama, and he's not even in the league anymore. And it's not like he went to the draft in 2010. I don't get too hung up on that. But, Jalen Smith was going to be a high-tiered draft pick. If Benjamin Morrison didn't get hurt, he was going to be a first-round draft pick for Freeman. The list could go on. And there's some that fell that I didn't think should have fallen. Again, Michael Mayer was not brought to South Bend when Marcus Freeman was the head coach, but he was a starting tight end in 2022 in his first season as a head coach. I thought he should have went in the first round, but it is what it is. But yeah, man, I wouldn't put too much weight into that. All righty, let's see.
Hey, Reagan, where do you think Diggs would be in the running back room conversation if he never transferred?
I mean, is he still hurt? Does he still get hurt? I mean, that's what kind of stunted his production last season. I mean, look, if Diggs was still in the running back room, he doesn't have more talent than what Jeremiah Love has. I don't think he has as much talent as what Jadarian Price showed as a runner. I think Diggs would have been a part of the rotation. With his ability as a pass catcher, I think they would have used him on third down, but it depends on what his injury history is. Is he still at Notre Dame but still gets hurt in the same volume? I mean, that's tough, but I'll say this, and I'll leave it at this. I wouldn't trade Notre Dame's running back situation for anybody else's in the country.
Nope. Look, Logan Diggs was a really good running back, and obviously, him and Audric Estime together, they were splitting time. They were doing some different things, and would Audric Estime have been Audric Estime if Logan Diggs was healthy and back that year? I don't know. It probably would have been one hell of a 1-2 punch, though. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I view it in the same light. Look, I loved Audric Estime in 2023, and I loved everything that he did. But when it was time for him to leave, I was ready for the next wave. I was ready for, okay, it's time for Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, time to see what these young cats and Aeneas Williams and Kedron Young do. I'm ready for that next stage.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm with you. Let's see here.
Bobby S. Cole Mullen sticking at defensive end or moving inside. Think he can be part of the rotation with Botelho out. It's possible. Like we kind of talked about Cole Mullins a little bit ago. I mean, it's possible that he breaks into the rotation, but he's got a ceiling to hit, like to break through. There's guys above him. It just depends on how deep they want to go at the defensive end, depth chart. And, Botelho's going to be back in theory in the middle of October. So how deep are they going to go into the depth chart, and what does that look like? It's a great question. So I don't know. Is it possible? Sure. I don't think he's going to move inside. I think he's going to be a defensive end. But if he puts on some more, because the problem was he put on too much weight and he wasn't as effective. And I think he's shed some of that weight and now he's a little bit more effective. You know what I mean? So I don't think he's going to be moving back inside, or at least that's not the plan as of right now.
Yeah, I doubt he moves back inside, or else if they make that move, then why did they move him to the edge in the spring?
Right.
But I do think with Botelho's injury now, and you still compound that with Boubacar still trying to work his way back up to 100% to take starter-esque level snaps, I think Cole Mullins could be a part of the rotation. I absolutely believe that he can be. Will he? Depends on the development of guys that we talked about yesterday. Bryce Young, Logan Thomas, who knows what that looks like.
Right.
Josh Burnham and Junior Tui Alamaka, if they take the next step in their development. But hey, look, it could very much, with them going from left to right instead of Viper and big end, it could be very much matchup based. If they come across a team that's just big along the offensive line, really want to establish the run, and they really need an edge setting against the run defensive end, Cole Mullins is like 6'5", 275 pounds as an edge.
Yeah.
He'd be somebody that I'd be very comfortable from a size perspective putting in there, but he's still inside of a year, I believe, removed from his injury. He just made the switch back to the edge in the spring. So there's a lot of pieces involved here, but he absolutely could. That's for sure.
Yeah. Anthony Bell, if you had to build an entire college football coaching staff with one coach and a cloning machine, who would you choose? Example, if you chose Marcus Freeman, he'd be your QB coach as well as the head coach and defensive coordinator. I mean, that also means that you'd have Marcus Freeman times 10 as a recruiter.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be terrible either. Just saying.
No, Marcus Freeman would be he'd be my choice for sure. I mean, shoot, recently, because of how hot he's been on the trail, I don't think having a bunch of Mike Mickens on the staff either would really hurt chances.
Yeah, so. True. Look, obviously, we trust Marcus Freeman to be the head coach. We trust Marcus Freeman to be the defensive coordinator, and I would trust Marcus Freeman to coach any side of the ball or anything on the defensive side of the ball. I don't know what kind of an offensive mind he has or what, that kind of a thing. You would have a very much a running offense if he was calling the plays, would be my guess. And so what kind of team do you want? Look, you're going to have a really good defense if Marcus Freeman is multiplied 10 times, and you're going to have some high-level recruits on your team as well. So sometimes it's not the X's and O's, it's the Jimmies and Joes. And if you got a hell of a lot of really good Jimmies and Joes on offense, Marcus Freeman can coach them up. So I'll take Marcus Freeman. That's fine.
Love it. Love that. Got a super chat in here from Tyler Evans.
Oh, Tyler, thanks for the super chat. Appreciate you very much. Give me one school that you think is jealous of Notre Dame. How much time do we have?
I was about to say, quick, simple answer. The school hanging out in Happy Valley right now.
They're the current ones for sure. I would say anybody in the Big Ten is pretty jealous because they keep saying that Notre Dame needs to join a conference. I don't hear that as much from the ACC people.
No,
I don't hear that as much. Some coaches like Narduzzi, that kind of a thing. But I guess I'm just not overly. And I don't necessarily hear it. You hear it from some SEC schools. You just hear it from Big Ten because they're just completely jealous that Notre Dame can do it on their own.
Yeah.
Yep.
Agreed.
Pete Weber, what are the feelings in Indiana for Game 7, of the NBA Finals? Are there any predictions?
I'm stoked. I think this is the 16th time the NBA Finals has gone to a Game 7, which is a lot of fun. The game last night here in Indianapolis was electric. It really was. And I'm happy that they held serve at home and OKC didn't win it. Look, OKC is a wagon of a basketball team. They probably have one of, if not the best front court in the NBA right now with Jalen Williams and SGA. SGA is the MVP and Jalen Williams went for 40 in Game 5. So it's going to be tough. OKC is a hard environment to play. My feelings about it, look, man, I think it's going to be cool regardless of who wins. It'll be OKC's first ever title or it will be Indiana's first ever title in the NBA. So modern era, I think it is. So obviously I hope the Pacers win. Games tip off is Sunday at 8 p.m. Predictions, I think it's going to be close. I do. I don't think it'll be a blowout either way. And the stage is set kind of in a perfect way. Game 5, Thunder kind of ran away with it. Never really was close. Outside of the first 4 minutes of the game last night was never really close. So hopefully that makes for a really exciting Game 7. But we'll see. But they already accomplished a big feat. People didn't even think the Sirs were going to make it this far. So
that's fair.
I saw a tweet the other day that said they thought the Thunder were going to win it in 3. So, yeah, I know. It is what it is, but it's been fun here. That's for sure.
No doubt. I bet the city's electric.
Oh, this is outside of the Colts. Sorry, Colts fans, but outside of the Colts, this has been a fun year for Indiana sports. Notre Dame makes it to the national championship. Indiana football has the best season that they've had in program history.
Right.
The Pacers are playing in the NBA Finals, and Caitlin Clark is just so fun to watch, dude. She is insane.
Have you been to a game in person?
To the Fever?
Yeah.
No, I want to.
Yeah.
No, I want to.
I heard the tickets are crazy.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, she draws a lot of eyes, and rightfully so. She was hurt, and then in her first game back, she dropped 3 threes in 38 seconds, and they were
deep.
They were all from the logo.
Yeah.
She is nuts.
Yeah.
She's so fun to watch.
John A1, Pass Pro. Has the issue been more of how the offensive line works together in Pass Pro? This is what I see. Or has the issue been more individual player technique and skill level?
No, I don't think it's skill level, John. Some of it's continuity. When you had the injuries that they had last season, Jags is out before the start of the season, and then Ashton Craig gets hurt 3 games in, then Billy Schrouth gets hurt 3 games in, and then you put in Pat Coogan and Rocco Spindler, and then you take out Sam Pendleton, and then you put Billy Schrouth back in when he comes in, and the 2 tackles holding down either side of the offensive line are first-year starters. I don't think it has anything to do with skill level. Player technique needs to improve. We've talked about Anthony Knapp's improvements in pass protection. We've talked about Emil Wagner's improvements in pass protection. But I think the biggest issue is just continuity. There's at one point last year where Notre Dame was like on their 5th straight week of like a different starting offensive lineup. That's hard to put together a cohesive unit. And so I think that's been a bigger issue. I think communication as well also needs to be better. That falls under the umbrella of continuity. You know, there were times where Notre Dame's offensive line for 2 seasons in a row still, for whatever reason on the interior, cannot handle stunts in D-line games. I don't know if that's communication. I don't know if that's coaching. I don't know if that's inability to evaluate what's going on. But it is what it is, I guess. Vince, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is continuity. I mean, that's my biggest thing, because notice how the left side got so much better when Billy Schrouth came in and kind of solidified left guard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that's just, it's all about who you play next to. And, you know, when you're a true freshman, and it's very difficult to play out there on an island by yourself. And so I do think it's continuity. If they can keep the same starting 5 the whole season, you're going to see a lot of improvement. Not to mention, because like you said, it's not skill level. There's a ton of talent there. And there's a ton of talent from a technique standpoint. I don't have an issue with that. It's playing together. And it's very hard to play together from a continuous basis and a continuity basis when it changes all the time and there's injuries. So if they can play together, and I know that sounds like such a obvious statement and an obvious answer, but it's true. If you can play next to the same guy for 15 straight games, it makes a big difference. You got a lot of nonverbal communication going on and things of that nature.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we're talking about a group that entered their game against Texas A&M with 6 combined starts, and it was Ashton Craig and Billy Schrouth, 2 players that got injured the 3rd game of the season. So much different outlooking group heading into 2025 than 2024.
Right.
That's for sure.
John A1, if CJ Carr or Kenny Minchie plays to their ceiling in 2025, are either top 10 college quarterbacks going into December? 100%. Yes.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
I mean, if you're telling me that CJ Carr is going to hit his ceiling as a redshirt freshman, that's crazy. I mean, if you tell me he's going to hit his 2025 ceiling, then I still think he could crack the top 10. If he's reaching his CJ Carr ceiling, that's unbelievable in his first year. I just that would be something else. What do you think?
I mean, look, if CJ Carr cracks his ceiling and plays to their ceiling this season, there's not only an argument for him to be in the top 10, there could be an argument for him to be in the top 5. You know, Kenny Minchie, same sentiment. I mean, if they reach their ceiling, I mean, if we see 2026 or 2027 version of CJ Carr or Kenny Minchie in 2025, not only do I think they're going to be a top 10 college quarterback going into December, I mean, Notre Dame is probably undefeated. Mm-hmm. And they're sitting around waiting to play the 2nd round of the college football playoffs. If that happens, I mean, that would be nuts. Oh, okay. John clarified. He said they're 2025.
Okay. That is more realistic. For sure, for both of these guys. But if they both play to their 2025 ceiling, I do think that they have a chance of being in that top 10 list, because just going off the top 10 list that you guys put out yesterday, and obviously there was some discrepancy between the two of you, but basically you gave us 14 or 15 names. And I think Kenny and CJ are both better than some of those guys. Especially if they play to their 2025 ceiling. So, yeah, I think they absolutely could be in the top 10. I'm not saying they're going to be the best quarterback in the country. I'm not even saying that they're going to be top 5. But I think they can absolutely crack the top 10.
Yeah. Yep. I agree wholeheartedly.
John A1, how do you project tight end blocking in 25 with Cooper Flanagan being out? Will Notre Dame be forced into personnel groupings with one tight end only more often in 2025?
This is a big question for me, John. I appreciate you asking it. John's put in some really good questions in the chat today. This one's tough. Eli Raridan looked like between the Jersey scrimmage and the blue gold game, he's kind of returned to form as a really good blocking tight end. People forget he was a very good run blocking tight end his freshman season in 2022. But then after the injury started piling up, it kind of took a step back. I think he's kind of back to form now, which is good. But outside of him, that's tough. I mean, what role will Kevin Bauman play? When he played last season, he only had 1 reception, but played in the majority of well, not the majority, but played in a good amount of games in 2024, and he was used mostly as a blocking tight end as well. But then you look at the depth chart after that, you kind of have a lot of H-back type, like receiving first type of tight ends, and Jack Larson, Ty Washington, Henry Garrity, the walk-on, is kind of more of a pass-catching tight end as well. That's where I think that a guy like James Flanagan could come in and crack the lineup. He does a lot of his work best attached to the line of scrimmage in more of a traditional format, more than flexed out wide. Not that he can't play lined up as a receiver, but he does his best work working attached to the offensive line. So they might use him a lot in blocking, but it's a very warranted question with Cooper Flanagan being out, because he was, for the duration of 2024, your best run blocking tight end. So be interested to see how they use him.
Yeah, a lot of question marks when it comes to tight end. You know, what's the Washington kid going to add? You know, are you going to attach Eli Raritan a bunch? Are you going to split him out? There's just a lot of question marks and how they're going to use the tight end. And I think that's what we need to see in the fall camp. Like, what is tight end usage like, knowing what they've got going on at tight end? So, yeah, that's going to be an interesting piece. Connor Grant, what do you think it will take for Notre Dame to land 5-star players at wide receiver and quarterback moving forward?
I mean, first and foremost, probably more continuity in the wide receiver room as far as coaching goes. I mean, Notre Dame has gone through, they went from Chancey Stuckey to Mike Brown pretty quickly. I mean, Mike Brown's first day on campus was also Bo Collins' official visit from the transfer portal last season. Give Mike Brown some time to get his feet under him. Another thing, too, is just going to be the expansion of the offense. I do believe that will have an impact, because when Notre Dame does go up against, on the recruiting trail, goes up against schools like Oregon, like Ohio State, like Alabama, who has Ryan Williams, like a Clemson, who did what they did last season in the passing game. Notre Dame is at a disadvantage because of the style of play that they have. You want to talk about anti-recruiting. It's not so much talking down on Notre Dame. It's just kind of talking facts. It's like, hey, look, if you go play wide receiver at Notre Dame, a lot of your expectations can be a really good blocker. They won't push the ball down the field that much, which is true from the 2024 season. However, I think if the offense does what we believe it to this fall, I think it's going to be a different conversation. So I would say expansion of the offense, but more importantly, just continued continuity at the top in the receiving room.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think after CJ Carr, Kenny Minchie, Noah Grubbs, you get that kind of Hebert, whoever comes next, you know what I mean? I think you're going to get very consistent quarterback play. And I think you're going to see a lot of Notre Dame success as well. That's going to bring in the top level quarterbacks. So they just need to play to their potential, and they'll be just fine. And they'll be able to bring in high level quarterbacks. Notre Dame's done a good job of bringing in high level quarterbacks ever since a certain person left town. So I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Now, do they have to be the quote unquote 5-star? No, because I don't think CJ Carr was considered a 5-star, was he officially?
No.
Yeah,
I know he wasn't a consensus 5-star.
I think he was a high 4, right? So is anybody wanting to give him back? Because I'm good. You know what I mean? So, So I guess we'll see. John A1. Notre Dame is targeting some serious height and length in the secondary. However, guys who I've seen play in the slot are typically shorter and quicker than outside guys. What's Notre Dame's long-term recruiting strategy for slot guys, because they had to go back to the portal for a 3rd year in a row?
I think some of that is just waiting for the talent to kind of catch up with the development, John. Right. They have attracted – they brought in Dallas Golden, and Golden, from everything that Brian has told me and said on the show, that he voiced how he wanted to play the nickel position. And Dallas Golden's like 6 foot tall, maybe a hair above. But I think a lot of it is just kind of waiting for the roster to get to the point where they don't have to go and dip into the portal and get a nickel. But you go and look, Mike Mickens, historically, this predates him being at Notre Dame, wants to recruit long, athletic, fast kids in his secondary. Look at who he had at Cincinnati: Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant. Yeah. Marcus Freeman has even came on record and said that he wasn't the biggest fan of Sauce Gardner, and Mike Mickens was adamant.
You're like pounding the table. Like,
yes,
this needs to happen. Yeah.
He's like, give me this kid. And now we know what Sauce Gardner is today. Mike Mickens is to thank for that, bringing him into Cincinnati and developing him the way that he needed to be. So, John, you're absolutely right that a lot of the talent that they attract to South Bend with Mickens is long athletic talent. We see that with Kari Adams, Leonard Moore, Carson Hobbs. Christian Gray is 6 foot tall, maybe 6'1", but he has very long arms, very quick, very athletic kids, very fast kids, and you're going to see that continue with him there. But to answer the slot position question, it's just waiting for the talent to catch up. I mean, Carson Hobbs took a lot of reps in the blue gold game at nickel, and he's 6'1". You know, Devontae Smith is a little bit bigger of a nickel. I think Devontae Smith fits more of what Mike Mickens wants out of the slot corner from a physique standpoint, more so than what Jordan Clark was. I mean, Jordan Clark was 5'9", smaller, more of a coverage guy. Devontae Smith is more of a jack of all trades. I mean, he's 6 foot tall. He's a bit bigger, like physically, than what Jordan Clark was. So that's where I am with the slot corner. Let's see here. John put in a lot of good ones. Here we go. Another one from John.
Are assisted tackles an impressive stat? For example, how impressed should we be with Drake Bowen leading 2024 Notre Dame defense in assisted tackles with 38? That all varies on where you go, because there are plenty of schools out there that hand out assisted tackles, you know, like dog treats. The 5 different guys got an assisted tackle on this one play. You know, I mean, it's ridiculous. Now, Notre Dame's a little more stingy when it comes to assisted tackles. And so I tend to believe their numbers a little bit more than some other places. But, yeah, I mean, you should be impressed with assisted tackles, in my personal opinion, because it means that you're in the right place at the right time and you're making a play. So not every tackle needs to be a solo tackle. And in fact, the way Notre Dame's defense plays, they fly to the football as a team. And so there's not a lot of solo tackles. There's a lot of assisted tackles happening, and I'm okay with that.
Well, it's also just the nature of the linebacking position. You're kind of you're in the box. So naturally
Right.
You are going to rack up more assisted tackles. I mean, you go and look at what Notre Dame did last season. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the 5 leading tacklers in assisted tackles last season were all linebackers.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense.
You know, whereas you scroll down and you look at what Leonard Moore did. He had 34 total tackles, only 14 of them. I mean, Christian Gray had 26 total tackles, only 9 of them were assisted.
Because they're out on an island, and so they're going to have to make solo tackles out there. Yeah.
Yep. It's just the nature of the position, man. And I'll say this. The only time that I don't view it as much of an impressive statistic is when they have more assisted tackles than solo tackles. You know, when you look at somebody, it's like, oh, dude, they had 42 total tackles this year. And it's like, yeah, well, 37 of them were assisted tackles.
Yeah,
so
right.
What lens are we looking at this through? But the bright side for Notre Dame, I'm looking here, every player outside of Jordan Botello and actually Kingston. Kingston had 28 assisted tackles and 9 solo tackles.
Huh.
But Drake Bowen, Jack Kaiser, Jalen Sneed had more assisted tackles than solo tackles. But, you know, Adon Schuler, Jay Nosberry, Riley Mills, Donovan Heinrich, they all had more solo tackles than assisted tackles. So it kind of depends on the lens that you look at it on. All righty, let's see here.
Brandon Gilbert, unlike Lincoln Cowherd, if you could put together a 12-game murderer's row based on IB's opinion schedule, based on teams from 88 to 24, also the 13th team in bowl.
Holy cow. So basically, like, who are the best teams since 88 to 2024? And so basically we have to also the 13th team and the bowl.
Holy cow. So we're supposed to have murderer's row. That means we got to pick the best 12 or 13 teams over the past 30, 35, 37 seasons.
I mean, and it can include Notre Dame.
All right. So in no particular, you're writing these down, aren't you? Okay. So
yep.
In no particular order, 2001 Miami, 2019 LSU.
Yep.
Those are the best two teams that I've ever seen play, I think, in my football watching days.
What year was that Nebraska team? 95 Nebraska?
Yeah, like 94, 95, something like with Eric Crouch.
Yeah.
That's the one you're referring to. Yeah. And look, put Notre Dame in there. If you want to put 88 Notre Dame, you want to put 89 Notre Dame, that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, 2012 Bama probably.
Yeah.
Is probably really in that conversation.
I think you're right about that.
2018 Clemson is probably in that conversation. Probably one of the Florida teams with Tim Tebow. I mean,
that was like 97, 98, somewhere in there. Well, 98 is when Tennessee won the championship because I believe Peyton Manning was 97. So, yep. The one USC team in 04.
Yeah.
I think that probably belongs on there.
05 Texas.
Texas 05. Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Let's see. We're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
We got 8 so far.
Yeah.
Brian would be so much better at this than I am.
So we need 5 more. I mean, I'm just going back through and thinking of years.
Yeah, I mean, one of those Georgia teams that won the national championship here recently would probably not be a bad one. Their defense is sick.
Yeah.
Running game.
We'll leave it up to the chat. Chat, what do you think? 21 or 22 Georgia, if you had to choose between one of those. Trying to think of just other teams that just went on that just had an absolute tear. See, my knowledge kind of stops. Like, of overall college football knowledge kind of begins around like 2012.
Right.
Like, that's what's tough. But I go back for Notre Dame to like 2005. Anything else is just what you guys have told me.
Because I don't know that Notre Dame belongs on this list other than the national championship season, to be perfectly honest. So I don't know. Like, I would love to put Notre Dame on the list, but I don't know if that's fair.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, as fun as it was, like, I just don't have a reference. 2010. Jason Smith brought up 2010 Auburn with Cam Newton.
Yeah.
I don't hate that. And then 93 Florida State. We'll say 21 Georgia. I mean, just either way, that is a gauntlet. What bowl game would you want to play them in, Vince?
I definitely wouldn't want to play an Alabama team in the bowl game. That's for sure. So, God, I mean, any of these teams in a bowl game would be really, really tough to play. Really, really tough to play.
Yep, agreed.
I mean, it really, if you take these teams that we just said, you shake them up and you roll them out and just put them in whatever order, and whoever you pick out 13th, that's who you're playing in the bowl. Because it doesn't make much of a difference, to be perfectly honest with you. The only difference is it's at a neutral site. So, yeah, 2000 Oklahoma, that's a good one. They were really freaking good. No doubt about that.
Yeah. All righty. Boom.
That's a good question. All right, John A1, which current Notre Dame offensive skill player, not named quarterback, doesn't scare opponents right now, but people should know this guy is truly a mismatch? Jaden Greathouse.
Yeah.
I don't think he's nationally scared. Like, I don't think he scares anybody nationally. I think he would be on, obviously, a scouting report and things like that, but scare, I don't think he does. But I think he could by the time the season is over.
Yeah, I'm going Eli Raridan. I mean, Nobody's going to look at his previous production and be like, oh, we need to circle him on the scouting report. But what should get his name circled on the scouting report is the fact that he's 6'7", 250 pounds. And it's like, who do you put on him to cover him? You know what I mean? It can't be a linebacker. Safety's going to be a mismatch. And so he's probably one for me that I don't think a lot of people are talking about him right now, but they will. I do think they will as the season kind of goes on. All right, Vince, last couple here because I know we got a busy evening.
Yes, we certainly do. Henry, Reese, who are your top 5 preseason football teams? You guys have already done this, haven't you?
Yep, so I want to hear yours, Vince.
So you can go right into the old archives on this one. Okay, in no particular order because I'm doing this off the fly here. Notre Dame belongs in the top 5. Penn State will probably be in the top 5, whether I think they should be there or not because of their schedule, and they'll remain in the top 5 because of their schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, who else? Ohio State will probably be up there, deservedly so. It's got to be someone from the SEC that I'm not thinking about. I mean, I think Georgia's probably going to continue to be pretty darn good. That's 4, I think, right?
Yep.
I need a fifth. Let's see here. Yeah, Texas. Thanks, Arch. I appreciate you. Texas would be my 5th. Yep.
Yep. In mine, I got Penn State, Notre Dame, Texas, Ohio State, and Clemson.
Okay.
Yep, those are mine.
Clemson's right there.
I know their season was pretty lackluster. Dude, Clemson return. I have something up on the message boards about it right now. But, man, Clemson returns a lot.
Yeah. And I know people are real high on Klubnik and what he can do. The pressure's on this kid.
Sure is.
You know, he's going to have talent around him. I think I saw a stat the other day that Clemson returns the highest production of wide receiving in the country, which that's a massive stat. So Klubnik just needs to be able to get the ball to him.
Mm-hmm.
And will he be able to do that on a consistent basis? I think that's what will hinge. That's how their season will hinge. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
Can Klubnik operate under pressure, you know, with the pressure of the season and being Clemson and all of those different things? So, yeah. John A1, next man in on the offensive line last year. The next man in did a great job, but they were experienced. Well, they are now. This year, the experience won't be there, but could the next guys in still be good based on talent?
Based on talent, sure, yeah. Vince, he's talking more about like how Pat Coogan and Rocco Spindler came off the bench last season, and they were experienced starters. So, I mean, the experience won't be as good. I do believe the talent's going to be there because think about who's going to be the next man in as far as the 2 deep. I mean, let's just say for all intents and purposes, Ashton Craig's going to be the starting center this year. I believe him to be, but you're going to have a kid coming in if he gets hurt in Joe Otting that took exclusive first team reps this
all spring.
You know, you have somebody in Sullivan Absher who really has played, and taken reps at like 4 spots along the offensive line in like a year and a half of being at Notre Dame. You know, he's taken reps at left guard, right tackle, and now center this past spring. There are worse scenarios to be in than having a 6'8", 330-pound kid coming in and being your 2 deep at 4 potential positions. Once Gerby Lambert gets back healthy, he would probably be next man in at right tackle. Then who knows what happens with Will Black?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, he's another person that could really – I mean, Styles Prescott had a good spring at left tackle, and he worked his way up the ranks. So you just never know. I mean, if Christopher Tarrick can come back healthy. So – the experience won't be as such, but they're going to be bigger, and I think they're going to be more athletic than what the guy's next man in was last season. It's a very valid question, John. It's just who knows with I mean,
who knows, like, honestly, with injuries and all of those different things, like, who is the next man in? You know, what does that even look like? Is it Gerby Lambert? Is it Will Black? Is it Sullivan Absher? Is it, Otting? You know, I just pretty much named a second-team offensive line. You know what I mean? So it's just going to be interesting to see who that 6th or 7th man is, if they even need to go down that road. And as we discussed before, if they don't have to go down that road and they got the same 5 starting offensive linemen all season, that's a pretty good thing too. So, and is it going to be the 5 starting offensive linemen that we think it's going to be too? I think that's a legit question at this point, which will be solidified, I think, in the first week or so of fall camp. But I think it's a legitimate question right now.
Oh, yeah. It's an extremely deep position. I mean, there's a world that if the sky falls and all 5 of Notre Dame starters get hurt, there's a world where your starting offensive line from left to right goes Will Black, Sullivan Absher, Joe Otting, Christopher Tarrick, Gerby Lambert.
And that's an offensive line that a lot of schools would want, my friend.
There are worse positions to be in. I mean, there's a world where all 5 of your starters get hurt and your offensive line the next week is bigger. Worse spots to be in, man.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Hey, Reagan, which college football program is your sleeper team to be making it in or first or second team out of the playoffs in the next few years?
Oh, man. In the next few years, that's tough because of how crazy the transfer portal's been. Sleeper team to be making it in the next couple years. I'll tackle that one first. Gosh.
It'll probably end up being somebody from the Big 12 because they're going to get an AQ. And who knows who's going to win that conference. I know that a lot of people are still high in Arizona State. But could somebody challenge Arizona State in the Big 12?
Yeah, first or second team in. I mean, look, there's a lot of ifs that kind of come along with this one, but I just can't think of one that won't perennially always be in the conversation. Like, I'm not going to talk about Notre Dame. I'm not going to talk about Ohio State. I'm not going to talk about Texas. Oh, gosh. Honestly, Michigan could be one of them if Bryce Underwood is what they think he's going to be. Truly a sleeper team to not win the Big Ten and get an automatic bye or anything like that. But, I mean, one to make it in is like an at-large bid. I could see that happening. I mean, with horrid quarterback play last season, they were able to beat Ohio State in Columbus and then knock off Alabama in a bowl game where Jalen Milroe played. You know, and so if they keep, you know, getting some good recruits, then who knows? I could see that happening. I'm not predicting it to happen, but I can see it. First or second team out of the playoffs in the next few years, Georgia. You know, I look at the talent on their roster and it doesn't overly impress me. You know, I'm never going to count out Kirby Smart because he's one of the best active coaches in college football right now on the field.
Yeah.
But
agreed. And he has a lot of respect for Marcus Freeman. So
yep, sure
that
does.
tells you if that tells you anything, you know.
Sure does. But I could see Georgia potentially. So somebody in the chat brought up USC. I don't hate that pick. I think that they
I don't like it, but I don't hate it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they had some addition by subtraction this past season.
Yeah.
You know, and offensively, I will just never count out Lincoln Riley, truly, as much as it pains me to say that.
I know.
So, all right, Vince, we got a super chat to take us home here, brother.
All right, let's do it from Ed3. Thank you very much for the super chat. Says, excellent show, fellas. And go Irish. And I couldn't have said it better myself. Trevor, that was a good show, man. We'll be back tonight around 7:30. And Brian said it in the last show. We'll be back regardless of the decision that is made by Joey O'Brien, because I think if it goes Notre Dame's way, obviously we'll have a commitment show. If it does not go Notre Dame's way, then we're going to have some things to say about the way things went this past weekend. And either way, it's going to be a pivotal decision that is made that affects Notre Dame moving forward. So we're going to have a show regardless. We talked about it, and normally we wait to see if a guy is going to commit or not. But we decided, you know what, this is kind of a pivotal one for Notre Dame. So we're going to go ahead and have a show regardless. So stick around, go, have some dinner, relax for a little bit, but then come on back. You got to make sure you hit that notification bell. Otherwise, you have no idea when we have an IB show after dark, which is coming up tonight at 7:30. We're letting you know, but hit that notification bell. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, share with your family and friends. We really appreciate that one, as always. And of course, jump on the boards.irishbreakdown.com to get all of your intel that you're looking for when it comes to recruiting, when it comes to the behind the scenes stuff with the team, when it comes to actual breakdowns. Brian's got breakdowns up there, of actual football 101 type stuff. So definitely want to check that out. Best thing money can buy. I promise you that. So for Trevor, I'm Vince, and we will talk to you next time, which is going to be in a few hours, on the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Have a wonderful night, everybody.